Okay, so it looks like we're just starting now.
Okay, thank you. So welcome everybody, all of council, our staff, and any of the public that might happen to be watching. So welcome everybody to our council meeting of May the 5th. It's, I believe, just after 6. So welcome everybody. And I first, before we start our meeting, if everyone can please have a moment of silence before we begin our meeting. So we'll have a moment of silence now, please. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I do have a motion here that council agreed to move items 8. I guess, has anything been moved, Jasmine?
Nothing was moved, no.
Okay, so then I don't need that one. Then I'm also going to remind everyone on council that if you have a disclosure of interest, you can just declare it now or anytime during the meeting. And I now have a motion that the regular meeting of council agenda dated May the 5th, 2020 be approved as circulated, and I need a mover and a seconder. So moved by Karen and seconded by Jeff. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. And next, I have a motion that the minutes of the regular meeting of April the 21st, 2020 be approved as circulated. Mover and seconder, please. Okay, moved by Claus and seconded by Ian. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. So do we have any business arising from those minutes of April the 21st? I see Jeff first and then Claus and Karen.
I guess just a quick question as part of the thing that Miles did. I'm curious if he was able to know if we're able to look at the fire, the new fire app. I know he was saying he was looking to see if we could have anybody, if we needed someone come into the office to install a phone line or something, but.
Yes, we will be following up on that to address that now that things are relaxing a little bit as well with the new essential businesses as well. I don't know if he's looked at it in between the last meeting or but I can follow up.
Okay, thank you. Claus?
Yeah, just a question. I know the last meeting we canceled the idea of hiring summer students. I did check with some other municipalities and they are still going ahead to hire students. Was there any consideration to reconsider that?
So we did, the direction that was received from council was to review options for a modified summer student program for a reduced term or for project specific terms. So we are still reviewing that and reviewing health and safety. I anticipate something for the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Karen?
That was my question. Just wondering about where that stood.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other business arising from those minutes? Okay, seeing none then, we're going to go on. We have no delegations tonight. And our first report of the municipal officers is yours, Jasmine, and that's on the municipal roof repairs.
Yes, so as council is aware, we do have our municipal office roof has a flat portion and then has shingled portions, sloped shingled portions. The flat roof portion has been repaired a few times in the past. And earlier this spring when during the melt, there was a pretty severe leak between the flat roof portion and the sloped roof portion. later in March, an additional leak around the skylight also developed. We did undertake emergency repairs immediately both times, and we did open up the ceilings within the office and run dehumidifiers for a number of days throughout the office to ensure that there was no dampness or mold that may develop. When the snow had melted and it was cleared for the roofing companies to take a look, we had 2 separate roofing companies come and take a look at the roof, and both of their opinions were that the roof does need to be replaced at this time. Particularly focusing on the flat roof. The slope portions are in okay condition, certainly not expecting leaks, but the flat portion and the portion around the skylight are not in good shape, and both companies recommended replacement. It's kind of unfortunate timing in terms of long-range asset management planning, but the roof is a pretty critical maintenance component and fairly critical for maintaining the health and safety of workers in the office. Additionally, there is some mold in the ceiling of the association room, and the leak that caused the mold has already been fixed. We have had an opinion provided by a company that actually notes that the remediation and the removal of the mold is best done externally rather than internally, so they can just cut a hole in the roof or remove a portion of the roof and remove the mold. If we are going to have a roofing company do a fairly big job, it would be a good idea to deal with both of those issues at the same time, and tender for both those jobs at the same time, potentially save having a crew having to come out twice, and of course make the building overall much safer. We did get estimates from the roof. They range from $20,000 to $80,000. That's not including the mold remediation. Of course, the $80,000 figure is for the replacement of the entirety of the shingled roof. So that would be like the entire thing for the fire hall, as well as all of the other shingled portions. It's in reasonable condition, and at this point, I don't believe it needs a full replacement. So the recommendation at this time is for council direct staff to tender, because it is probably going to come above that 30,000 mark, for the replacement of the municipal office roof, focusing on the flat portion of the roof and mold remediation in the fire association room.
Jasmine, the report does say that the fire hall roof part is in reasonable condition, but do we know how many years are left approximately? Because usually we either get 20, 25, 30, whatever, but how many years are left since we did that?
It is in the building condition assessment report.
Okay.
I can't say offhand.
Okay, no problem. I guess I'm going to go, I have Claus and Ian, but I just have a question. Like, I know that we're going to have discussions on all of the buildings later in the meeting. And I guess I'm just wondering, like, if whatever we were going to do to the roof now, if we decide to fix it now, would we be doing the same thing if we were going to be renovating the administration / fire hall building? Would we do the roof the same way? We don't really, it's just a question in my part, and I would think that if we were, depending on what we decide, I would think it would make sense, but I guess that's up to all of us to make that decision. But
so a renovation could include the roof, the exterior, but typically the renovations usually are the interior envelope of the building.
But we're not just talking about the interior of the administration building right now, are we? Like, we're talking about the shingles on that part of the building, aren't we?
The recommendation is the shingles above, like the roofing portion above the administration, or sorry, not the administration, the fire association room, and the flat roof portion on the administration. That's what the recommendation is in this report.
Yeah. Okay, Claus?
Thanks for the report, Jasmine. Is it possible for that flat roof to be converted into some kind of a slope on that roof at all? I mean, I know what it looks like, and I know that years ago it's flat because it was piecemeal added on to over the years. Just a question, is it possible to change that flat roof to a slope roof?
Yes, it is possible, and it's something that we did talk about internally. If council would like, we could tender for a replacement of a flat to a sloped portion. I think everybody knows that flat roofs are problematic in terms of leaks. So
Is-
that's
Yeah,
something that we could
the
look
area,
at.
also, if I may follow up question, Reeve, the area that was leaking quite badly too is where that skylight is.
Yes, there is a
Okay.
leak around the skylight as well.
Yeah, was there any thoughts of maybe getting rid of that skylight?
Well, certainly if we went to a sloped roof, we'd have to get rid of the skylight.
Yeah, because in my experience, skylights are nothing but a maintenance thing forever and ever. Especially the fact that this skylight is probably fairly old. It was constructed a number of years ago.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Claus. Ian?
So a couple of years ago, we did have the roof repaired by a company, and I thought they repaired the flat portion of it and around the skylight.
Yes, that was my impression as well.
So is this actually warranty then?
Not to my knowledge. It was a number of years ago. It was, I think, 2017. So it was 3 years ago that we would have done that. I can double check into it, but typically warranties on repairs don't go beyond a year.
Well, like, typically your roof is, and I think actually the other roof was done not last term of council, the term before that, possibly
Okay.
shingle, as from what I was told anyway. So we should have a 20 or 25 or 30-year warranty on, at least on the material.
Mhm.
You don't normally get the labor for free, but the material at least, and it should be the same, maybe flat roof. In 2017, it was suggested that we put a peak roof on it, and it wasn't voted for. So we're to have a peak roof on it now. Is it leaking right now?
It's been repaired to the point where it's not actively leaking, but it's like the roofers were very clear that that was an emergency temporary repairs.
Okay, so it's not leaking right at this second. So is it detrimental that we make a decision then tonight on the roof? Can this be put off for a week or two or a council meeting or two until we can have a better idea of what we're doing? We're having discussions later on about administration buildings and everything else. I just hate to spend money on something if we're going to do something different or whatever might be changed.
Yeah, and I understand that reservation 100%, and it was difficult for me to, recommend that we move forward to it. The way that the roofers were discussing this is fairly critical. The repairs they did do were emergency repairs. We could probably swing it a couple months, but we're definitely going to have to make that decision this summer.
The problem would be that, we might be able to hold on for a couple of months, but it's going to be much longer than a couple of months before we're able to, whether we were going to renovate or put up a new building or whatever, it's certainly going to take a lot longer than 2 months. But obviously, as long as it doesn't rain, it won't be a problem. But I think when that was happening, we were having a lot of ice and snow and freezing rain and everything else. So did I see your hand go up, Jeff?
Can I just make one point as well? We'd have to tender for the work. So then any delay that we have at council, also there's another month on top of that, right? So there is that working period in between.
Yeah, and there's going to be lots and lots of people, I'm sure, tendering for different jobs. But Jeff, did I see your hand? Because I have Karen also. Okay, Karen, thanks.
Is there a reason that we contacted these two companies versus the company that actually did the repair as well as the company that originally did the shingling?
The company that did the repair is no longer a company. And we contacted those two companies because we had worked with them. We worked with Garland on redoing some of the stuff on the public works roof, and they were very good. And then the other company was the one that did the emergency repairs and were very easy to deal with. So it was we just picked a couple that had experience with flat roofs.
Any further questions on this? Jeff?
I guess I'll just to chime in, like, I mean, I agree with Ian a bit too as well, because it's a little bit difficult to make sure, you know, what direction we want to go with the roof when we're not too sure what we're doing with the building. That being said, I echo kind of also what Claus is saying with the flat roofs. I mean, I remember I dealt with flat roofs in my past jobs, and the headaches that they brought as they always leaked. So I like the idea of the peaking it out and metal roofing it, and then if we put a metal roof on it and doing something like that, I think anything going forward, I'd rather us metal roof anything instead of shingling, just because that's going to give us the longevity. That's just my sort of opinion. Because I mean, we talk about 25 years and 30 years. I think McIntosh and Perry put that into the next report about shingles, and most people you talk to nowadays say shingles don't last that long. So I mean, I'd rather go with a metal roof. The other question is, if we peak that roof, is there 2 windows that we would be covering up then from the fire association's room if we did that?
Yeah, there's 2 windows up there.
How many windows are in that room?
4.
Sorry.
There's 4. So I'm just wondering, if we did make a decision of doing something like that, we would lose 2 windows. So we don't want to leave the fire association in the dark, I guess.
They got a light switch, don't they?
So it's anyways, that's kind of my side, but I kind of agree with Ian where I'd almost like to put this on hold a little bit, just so we kind of discuss the other part. Anyways, maybe bring it back.
I tend to also agree with that idea right now, because it would be nice to have the other discussion. We might be, I mean, we still have lots of options. We've got like 3 different buildings we're going to be talking about: the fire hall, the administration hall and building, and the public works. It would be nice to know what direction we might be going there, because I mean, obviously one of the many options might be to renovate the administration building, and which might include the fire hall. It may not be a fire hall, it could be something else, it could be part of the administration, whatever, but whatever we're going to do there, I think kind of depends on what we do with the roof right now. And I don't think waiting maybe till even 1 meeting is going to be a big deal. But the only problem is, as I said, if we're putting out RFPs, the longer we wait, the more difficult it is, and the less chance we have of getting whoever we might want to do it, or someone who is possibly better than someone else. And the reason is because there's going to be so many jobs come up, I feel, because of once COVID-19 kind of gets over and we start looking at all of the other jobs, everybody's going to be doing the same thing. But we do have a motion here, and I'm
make a suggestion.
Yes.
I do want to note that it may not be prudent to wait the entire time that we're, may make a decision, or at least provide direction or something on the renovation or the facilities as a whole. I think that, the roofing is a kind of a much more prominent issue, and it may put us in a position where we're reacting to the issues rather than proactively fixing it. I know it's an unfortunate timing. It's just an unfortunate timing to have both of these decisions coming up at once. What you could do, and it's a suggestion, is to defer the decision tonight and say, why don't we look at if we can slope it, if it's possible. We could ask the companies if it's possible for a slope roof, or in how much it would be, how much more it would cost, sorry. And we could provide some sort of analysis or some sort of information on how it might fit with an interior renovation, if that's the way that council goes in the future.
My opinion is, this is just my opinion, is that if we're going to repair that roof, and obviously it has to be repaired, whether it's done in 2 weeks or 2 months, it has to be done. But my opinion is, do it right this time. And I'm sure that that's going to mean getting rid of the skylight and going with a pitched roof. That would be doing it the right way. So no matter what we decide later, that to me is the way to go. So that, I guess, would mean then that we would need, at least till the next meeting to get the costing. Is that what you're suggesting, Jasmine?
At least for us to say, hey, like, to get the opinions from the contractors to confirm that 100% we can do that, and we could try and get an opinion from the companies that could be something that works in the future with a renovation, just to leave that option open for council.
Then would we be contacting other people then through the procurement policy?
Well, we'd be working with a couple companies just to see it's possible, and then tendering, because it's likely to be more than 30,000.
So if we were tendering, then it's open to anyone and everyone, including the person that you were talking about, Karen, the people that did it originally. So it could include everybody, I guess, obviously.
Mhm.
Well,
Certainly,
any other comments and questions on this?
Well,
Yes, Karen?
because Ian mentioned about the fact that it was reshingled, that we do need to reach out to the company that originally did the shingling to see whether or not, because I mean, if there's warranty for the shingle part of it. I was
Yeah.
referring to the
slope.
company that did the flat roof, but
Yeah,
that was
well-
answered to say there was no warranty.
I also think that's a good idea, but again, that's something that can be done before our next meeting, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any other comments and questions? I'm going to read the motion as it is, but I guess we'll have to change this motion. Jasmine, do you want to change it now before I read it?
Well, I can't change the motion. Only council can change the motion with a motion to amend.
Oh, yes, well, I'm going to read it first, and then everybody will know what it says, and then we can change it whatever way we wish. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, so this motion as it is reads that council directs staff to proceed with tendering for the replacement of the municipal office roof, focusing on the flat portion of the roof and mold remediation in the fire association room and associated roofing repair.
So an additional option. Hang on one second. I have my procedure bylaw up here. So a member could put a motion forward to amend, or a member may also put a verbal motion to defer the item. And then council can provide direction for options for a flat roof.
Okay, I've got two people, Claus and Ian.
I'd make a motion to defer and look at options to change the flat roof to a slope roof.
Okay, Ian?
I'll second Claus's motion to defer it.
Okay, so we do have a motion to amend this, or to defer this motion. If there is no other questions and comments, I'm going to call the vote. All in favor of this? Okay, and that motion to defer is carried. Okay, thank you. And thanks for that report so far, Jasmine, but we'll look forward to, I guess, we should be able to move forward again in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, and I just want to, if we could just get consensus on, I mean, I know we're deferring the items, the motion is to defer. I'm assuming there's consensus to look at flat roofs options and consensus on how it would look in the overall envelope of what we're looking at doing or talking about doing with our facilities. That's the
Okay,
direction.
I'll go around and ask for that. I'm going to go around and ask for that, please. Karen, because you're at the top here.
What is, you want to go what, Jasmine, with reference to the roof?
So
We're kind of looking at consensus, whether we think we want to look at a sloped roof. I think, is that what you're asking, Jasmine?
yeah, and
That's the consensus.
yes, if we're looking at us just to get the clear consensus about the sloped roof and to provide some sort of information about how it might work with, and this doesn't put make a decision by council or anything like that, but how it might work with in the future, other decisions with the facilities. I know
Well,
it's a
I'm in
little bit
favor of
vague.
the peak. I'm in favor of the peak roof for sure.
Okay,
There's no sense
Okay.
wasting money that we've done so far on that other roof.
Okay, Claus,
Yep.
Jeff,
I agree, and also like looking at the metal options too as well, if we're gonna do the peak roof. Once again, I want to restate that I think we should be metaling everything, not
okay, Ian,
Yeah, I'm definitely for the peak roof, and if they could just break the quote out for asphalt and metal, just so we have a difference in what the costing is.
okay,
and I think, yeah, that's a very good point, because then if we have the quotes for both asphalt and shingles, then that'll help us in the decision, I think.
yes. So
Okay, we have a question from Karen.
But Jasmine will follow up with the company that shingled it originally for the warranty that was on those shingles, because if it's still warranted, that would be replaced at no cost for the shingles, just the labor.
yeah, we can look into that for sure.
Do you need staff direction for that?
It's not gonna hurt.
Okay, so Karen is obviously for it. I am, Claus
Yes.
and Jeff
yeah.
and Ian. So
Yeah.
that's unanimous, also, Jasmine. Okay, thanks everybody for that. We're going to move on, but I kind of see Claus's hand halfway up.
We get a disposition on the
Nope.
motion.
Pardon?
Did we get a disposition on the motion to defer?
Yes, it was unanimous.
Good, okay.
Both of those were unanimous.
Yes. So I just want to be very clear. I'm not coming back with clear quotes because it will have to be tendered potentially based on the total. I'm just going to come back to make sure we can do it and get authorization to move forward with tendering, unless it comes out much cheaper.
So when we do ask for that tendering, then we would obviously put that in the application. We'd want a quote for both, wouldn't we?
Yes, you can do that for both.
Okay, Karen?
But at the same time, we won't need to quote for the steel versus shingled if the shingles are still under warranty under that other company, right?
If they are, yeah. I mean, but if we're tendering, we're going to be tendering for the shingled versus metal on the new roof that would be installed.
And again, a concern of mine also will be that whatever we choose to do, whether it be asphalt or or tin or whatever, even to do with the color, like whatever we decide to do, we would have to at the same time be thinking about what we might be doing with the rest of the building.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Okay, anything else then on that? So yes, Ian?
Yeah, just when we're just touching base here, can we get an idea, an estimate on the mold removal portion of it?
Yes,
That can get quite expensive pretty quickly.
yes. Yeah, we can get an idea. I know that Chief Greer was working on quotes for that, so I will see exactly where he's at on that. Yes.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, then we're going to move on to the next section of our meeting, and that's the next report, which is also yours, Jasmine. That's the one on the laptop purchases.
Yes. So in March 17th, we had a very brief discussion about the purchase of laptops. We did have some, part of it was instituted for COVID-19, but part of it was also a needed upgrade to our IT infrastructure. And I do want to apologize because this was a conversation that I was certainly intended to have with council probably prior to the purchase of the laptops. But while we can incorporate the laptop purchase into our operational budget, it's probably much more appropriate to put them in to actually fund them through the modernization fund, which was a fund provided by the province last year to a total of $39,701. The laptop purchases totaled $6,000. So I'd like authorization to fund those laptops through the modernization funds. It certainly supports the intended the intent of the modernization fund, which is efficiency of service delivery and modernization. I know many other municipalities are using that fund to purchase IT hardware as well. So we're definitely going to need an upgrade.
Okay, thank you. I have Claus and next is Karen.
I make a motion that we proceed with that.
So we do have a motion already.
I'll
Yeah.
move that motion.
I guess I'll ask if there's any other questions and comments first, and then I'll move back to you, Claus. It sounds like you're going to be moving this motion, which we already have, but I'm going to go to Karen first.
How many laptops did we purchase? Because I thought on March 17th, it was just a couple of them.
We did 4 plus docking stations.
4 plus docking stations.
Yes.
That's a good deal.
So any other questions? If there are no other questions, then the motion that I have here is that council authorize the use of the one-time modernization fund to fund the purchase of the laptops and docking stations to a total of $6,160, not including HST. And that motion has already been moved by Claus, and I need a seconder.
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
Was there any money in this year's budget for computers for anywhere?
There was some money, but not enough to replace all the computers. And like I said, my intent was to have this conversation with council before we bought the laptops, and it just didn't happen in time.
Well, if we had budgeted already to buy computers for some departments, could part of it come from that budget and the other come from modernization?
Yes, you could split it up.
Jeff?
Because I agree with where Karen's going with that, because I thought we had, because I was trying to remember that I thought we had budgeted some money for buying computers because we were getting out of the leasing and everything else. So it'd be good if we could still utilize some of that as that goes. Is there software too that was incorporated in that, Jasmine, or is it just the hardware for those 4?
The software licenses would be something we'd be paying for anyway.
No, I'm just wondering if it's on top of that 6,000, because I'm just trying to get my head around that we paid, how much we paid per laptop. That's all.
Yeah, no, there's no software purchases for
This
those.
was just for the just for the hardware
Yes,
and 4 docks.
yes.
Okay, Ian? Oh, sorry, Jeff, were you
I was
finished?
just gonna ask him, where are we getting them?
We order our IT hardware through the county. Part of our agreement.
Order the laptops through the county?
Dell? Yeah, we order the laptops through the county, yes.
I'm just wondering if we're getting the best price. So like, I'm trying to think of like the specs that we would need for a laptop, and I'm just trying to think. Like I thought when I saw the quote of $6,000, I'm like, okay, we're probably getting like maybe 5 or 6 laptops, but when we're getting 4, I just feel like
5.
4.
Anyway, that's just my perspective. But
Okay.
why do we have to go through the county though? Sorry, we have to go through the county.
Right now, yes, our agreement is through the county.
Okay.
So
Okay, Ian?
since
Yes, Ian?
yes, the last meeting we talked about IT services and everything else.
Mhm.
Is this something we can hold off on then?
Unfortunately, no. Not these ones.
Okay,
We already tried them?
were you finished, Ian?
Well, I was wondering, I'm just wondering why we can't hold off on it unless we've already purchased them.
We've already purchased them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I do apologize.
Okay, so I'm going to go back in a minute. Well, I'll go, Karen, do you have anything further there? You
No,
had your hand up.
That was it. They were purchased.
Okay, so now the way that the motion that I had read has been moved by Claus. For that motion, I need a seconder.
But I asked for,
Pardon me? Yes,
I
ma'am.
had requested that we change it to go part of it from the budget that was already budgeted for and the
Yes.
other part from,
Yes, I realize that, but I guess I need to then ask if Claus, you've moved this so far. So Claus, can you make that, I guess, can we just make a friendly amendment there before we get a seconder, Jasmine? Is that procedurally okay?
So if Karen would like to modify so I guess, Karen, you're putting a motion on the floor then?
yes.
Well, hang on. Since I moved the motion, if I agree with making the amendment, would that not be satisfactory?
Yeah, that's fine.
And Karen can second it because we both agree on doing the same thing.
Okay, so are we talking about half and half?
Yes.
What was in our budget?
I'd have to double check, yeah.
So if we could just do whatever was budgeted for in the budget, since I don't have it beside me.
Then fund the rest out of the
Modernization fund, yes.
organization fund?
Yes.
Yeah. If it's,
So-
if it's a 50 split or 60-40, it's immaterial to me.
Okay,
So this amendment has been, I think, is this amendment moved by you, Claus, then?
Yes,
And it is seconded by Karen. And so we're voting on the amendment then first, right? Or is the other one just dropped?
you're voting right now on the amendment.
Okay, so all in favor of that amendment? That is carried unanimously. And now what about the original motion? I only have a mover for it. Do we have a seconder? Because if we don't, then we don't need to vote on it, right?
Well, you,
Do we have any seconder for that?
no, so
So,
stop, hang on.
yeah, I was going to you, Jasmine.
So the amended motion, so the new motion would be that council receive the following laptop purchases and that the following be approved, that council, that the laptop purchases be funded as budgeted with the rest to be funded through the modernization fund.
So can I have a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Claus. Seconded
Because
by Jeff. No other comments? All in favor of that?
this is where we're doing it by modernization and the budget, correct?
In the
Yeah,
budget.
yes.
Yeah.
So all in favor, I've seen 3 opposed. You abstaining in? Sorry, I didn't see
For the
your hand.
first time.
Okay, sorry, yeah, thanks. So that's carried then, Jasmine?
Yes. So I
Yep.
would make a
Letting you know.
recommendation for those that have a background turned on that you put your hand up in front of your face.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. My fault.
No, I'm seeing most of the hands very nicely. Thanks, everybody. Okay, so now we're going to go, I guess, do we have Andrew? Is Andrew doing the next report?
No,
Okay, so, but it is his report. That's the next one then is the treasury report. PSAB reconciliation. Are you giving that one, Jasmine?
yes, it is a fairly routine report. So basically it converts our budget, our 2020 budget into the OREG 284-09 reporting requirements. So it's basically converting our budget from a cash-based budget to a PSAB compliant budget. So we provide this report every year and it's in the same format as every other year.
Any questions? I do have a motion. That is the treasurer's report, the 2020 PSAP report, and that the following be approved, that council adopt the report for expenses excluded from the 2020 budget outlined in this report as a requirement of Ontario Regulation 284-09. So I just need a mover and seconded for that. So moved by Karen and seconded by Jeff. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Now we're moving on to the emergency management update by our fire chief, Miles. Miles, are you there? Is Miles? Yeah. Hi, Miles. Thank you.
I
So
just
we're
had to
now
get
going to
my,
do the emergency management update, okay?
absolutely, yes, thank you very much. So I'd like to start with just our April 28th meeting that we held, just to bring our councilors and our community updated of what we discussed. So there was one that didn't make the attendance on that, and that was our Public Works manager, but lead hand, Daryl Hay, had sat in for her in the meeting. So just a couple items that we discussed on the 28th was, so we had discussed about when we do decide to open up the township facility operations, that myself and the clerk administrator would make a list of a plan for the aspects for the current situation. So including health and safety measures and workers in the office. So Jasmine and I have been working on coming up how to implement a plan for, you know, health and safety for our workers and the public, of course. It was also discussed in the 28th meeting that we possibly could be looking at maybe moving our meetings to every 2 weeks. And the reason being was we found, you know, being a smaller municipality, that we didn't seem to have a lot on our agenda. But in saying that, we certainly haven't canceled one yet. There always seems to be something new popping up every week. So it was discussed if our agenda was very small, that we may not hold a meeting, but that has not happened yet. It was also discussed that Jasmine was working with the Big Brothers Big Sisters in the town of Smith Falls to promote the program for distributing groceries and whatnot. Unfortunately, at that time, she had not got any response from the Big Brothers or Big Sisters of where that stands. We also discussed the boat launch closure. We had closed it in the previous meeting, but we had discussed possibly the opening of it due to, you know, the opening part of fishing coming up in May. We were thinking as a group that it's bad enough that we are in isolation, and that boat launch not really being a conservation area with a picnic table or washrooms is not really a gathering area. It's more put your boat in and go do what you wish to do. So we had discussed a few issues about that. So it was, and then after we had did some, Jasmine and I, we had actually did a little bit of investigation whether legally we could open up our boat launch, no legal actions. It was found that there is no legal actions, that it was not part of a provincial, as far as them saying that we had to close it. So we decided, you know, to have a few conversations about it. So after that, we had directed that the boat launch would be reopened. And of course, with social distancing, with no legal ramifications. So that's basically our 28th meeting. I was just wondering, does anybody have any questions on that particular meeting?
Ian?
Yeah, Chief, we have a couple questions. The reopening of the office, do you foresee that in the foreseeable future? I see that the government's obviously, you know, is a lot more receptive to what's going on, and when do we think that that's going to happen? That we'll see.
I think that's going to be in the next meeting that you're going to report on, Miles, the one we had today, right?
There is some topic coming up on that in our May 5th meeting, correct? To comment though, Ian, really from day to day, nobody really knows when they're going to start opening up facilities. The group itself just wanted to be kind of prepared when they do open it, you know, to have everybody's safety in their top of the list. So to answer that, Councillor Straight, I would have no real idea when they're talking that.
All right, thank you.
You had two questions, Ian, I think.
Oh yeah, the other one was regards to the boat launch. I know that I talked to you earlier today, and you filled me into or up to date with what you know, you guys had done in regards to the boat launch and your due diligence and everything else like that. So that conversation was definitely appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'll move on to our May 5th meeting. I believe these were actually forwarded to council. So it was noted that the grocery program was being promoted by Lake 88 for surrounding areas and Smith Falls. So I believe they've kind of gone ahead with this. And it was also noted in that meeting that the essential service list did not permit the boat launch opening.
Sorry, I want to be clear, it didn't prohibit, it permitted.
Sorry, it didn't prohibit. I apologize for that. So we also discussed some COVID-19 updates, and there was an update for an essential service list released by the province on Friday. I'm thinking everybody had that forwarded to them. And for any of our community, it is on our website, what businesses they've decided to reopen, of course, with strict guidelines for social distancing. So you can go to our website, find out what businesses were reopened. We discussed some health and safety for the opening of the facility, and it was discussed about possibly the installation of plexiglass or a screen in front of our front desk. And then it was also talked about possibly, you know, discussion of employees returning to work, you know, along with timing for reopening of the facility. It was brought up by a member that, you know, we would need some procedures and policies for cleaning procedures of our ATM machine and, you know, after use. And our lobby is, as you're aware, not a real great layout for social distancing. As they come in the door, they're fairly on top of each other at that point. So we were looking at ideas, how could we curve that and have our 6 to 10 feet that we require. So that's some of the topics that we talked about. Again, this could be months down the line, but we just wanted to have quick discussions on it. The next one was the boat launch. We had discussed concerns with opening of the boat launch. It was noted that the boat launch open and closure does not prevent any private users from launching their boats on their own property. And I had noted as a fire chief that the opening of it is kind of a benefit if we did have anything there, that it is an access point for the fire department to attend any calls at that end of the river. So we had decided that, you know, again, we thought we had made a good decision on opening it. So that's the way our group decided, and we've stuck with that decision. The next topic is the burn ban, and I was just informed today that we talked as Lanark County group, and that we will be removing the burn ban Thursday of this week. Our burn ban will come off. That's not all of Lanark County, because a certain two fall into the provincial legislation, which is to do with Crown land. They can't remove their burn ban because of that reason, that the provincial has the burn ban in Lanark Highlands and Mississippi Mills. So I don't believe they will be on board with us for that reason. So that's a kind of a good thing, you know, our community with their idle time can go have their campfires, and I'm glad to see that kind of come around. Of course, that was all weather. It's greened up nice now. It wasn't really, you know, a decision of COVID. It's safe to do so. Again, in that meeting, we talked about our emergency checklist. And of course, at that time, we had not thought about declaring an emergency at that time. That's a quick update. Does anybody have any questions on the May 5th?
I see no question. Jeff?
Well, I mean, I'll just bring it up again because you weren't on before, and I was asking Jason about the app for the fire permits and everything. You think we can open things up, or do you think we can were you able to find out if we need to have someone into a phone line, or do we have to, or anything like that?
It's certainly in the works right now. I talked to them last week, and he's going to get back to me. Again, they are kind of down staffed due to COVID, but he said that he's definitely going to get back to me in a week. So I hope to get this up and running. Hopefully, I'm not committing myself 100%, but I would like to see it up by the 1st of June if possible.
That'd be awesome. I would love to see that. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? If not, I do have a motion here. I'll read it. That is that council receive the following report. The Fire Chief Greer's report, the emergency management update, and that the following be approved, that council receive the verbal report for information. I need a mover and seconder for that, please. Okay, so moved by Jeff. Seconded by Claus. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So moving on, I have a motion that council approve the minutes of the meeting of committee, the whole meeting of April the 21st, 2020, and approve the recommendations contained within. I need a motion, a mover and seconder for that, please. Moved by Karen and seconded by Jeff. Any questions before we vote on that? Yes, Karen?
It's not a question, it's
Now,
more of
this
a
is just
comment.
approving the minute. Pardon me?
It's more of a comment.
I'm sorry, Karen.
It's more of a comment.
Okay,
It has to do with the
yes, that's
quarterly
fine.
report. It has to do with the quarterly reports. I just wanted to note that I had emailed the treasurer and clerk administrator. I guess I maybe should have brought forward a motion. So Jasmine, with reference to having quarterly financials as part of our quarterly reports on an ongoing basis.
Mhm.
But it was something she mentioned has been done in the past, so they are going to add it. So next meeting, we will then have the quarterly financials.
Yes, next meeting we will have them.
Okay, Jeff?
Because we had started that with our last treasurer, right? But it kind of fell by the wayside, right? Because I think wasn't Allison doing that at the beginning? Like, not, I mean, we had a fall off. Nothing against Andrew, but that was kind of a part of it too. But Allison had started that as well, right?
Yeah, it was a regular practice, which is why we've committed to providing it in the next meeting in May, because it was a regular practice that we stopped. So yeah, we can definitely do that. We'll have it for the next meeting.
Okay, Ian?
One last thing on when we talk about the building stuff, it was brought to my attention that there's somebody building in the industrial park.
Under
Well,
the building reports.
That there's
I've never seen or heard anything.
Well, that's why I'm asking. There's footings and other stuff up there possibly.
There's that, like,
Might that possibly be the people who had purchased a lot from us many years ago?
Good question.
Yeah.
what I'm wondering is when we get the building report with all the permits, it'd be nice to have the permits laid out on a map on the township so that we could see where everything's being built, you know, so that we all understand. So if there's a whole bunch of houses being built, say on the Pinery, just a dot, you know what I mean? So it just represents roughly where the permits are, where they've been issued for that quarter. Is that possible? Is that something that the council would like to see? I think it'd be great to understand the growth pattern throughout the township.
I think it's possible. I'm not sure how doable that would be on a quarterly basis. It could be part of perhaps like a yearly report. As I know that there's certain things that we do with CGIS to get building permits mapped anyways, as a suggestion.
I mean, I'm just thinking like a red dot on the map, you know, was a house, and if it was commercial, maybe it's yellow and where it is. And there's all kinds of different things that are popping up that it would be really nice to think that if council understood what they were, you know. I was down on Reader River Road the other day. It looks like there's somebody's built a canoe shop or something maybe down in there. I don't know what it is.
I mean, I can talk to our building official to see how easy that would be. We do already do some mapping working with CGIS, but I might make the recommendation that it may be every 6 months, like a part of the quarterly reports, but every 6 months or every year, as a suggestion.
Okay, thanks. Good point, Ian. And I think we could wait for that to come back to us, Jasmine, if you could report back on that.
If council wants
Please.
to provide that direction, yeah.
I'm going to go to Karen first, and then I'll go back to get.
So Ian's comment sort of goes along with what my request had been about the quarterly reports, where at the last quarter it said I think 9 permits issued, 3 were for residential. So I'd asked what the others were. So when they're doing the breakdown to say, for example, that the others, maybe at the same time they could even say the north side of town or north side of the municipality, south, whatever, that it could just tie in with when they do that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it could.
Well, why, when it says like residential and then others, well, the others would be obviously, I guess, commercial. What other things like?
Fences, pools,
I
decks,
see.
Upgrades, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
but
All right.
looking to see if there is more than just houses.
So, so Jasmine, you were asking that if we had consensus to be able to do these reports on a bi-yearly basis, or is that the consensus you were looking for? Or Ian?
Yeah,
Ian,
sorry, go ahead, Reeve.
no, you go ahead, Ian. I just
think that
go ahead.
it's great information for us to see so that we can, you know, as a council, make informed decisions about improvements to roads and ditching and everything else, you know, so that we're working in the right areas where the growth is.
But that's the staff direction that you're looking for then, Jasmine?
Yeah, like we can look into options to providing mapping to council.
Okay, so I'm going to go around. Claus, is that fine with you?
Yes.
Yeah, Jeff?
Yes.
Ian?
Yeah.
And Karen?
Yes.
And yes, so that staff direction is also unanimous, Jasmine. So thank you for that. And so I'm going to read it again because this motion was moved by Karen and seconded by Jeff that council approve the minutes of the meeting of Committee of the Whole meeting of April the 21st, 2020, and approve the recommendations contained within. All in favor of that? And that is also carried. Thank you. And we're moving on to the next section of the meeting, and that's petitions. We have none. The bylaws, we have a couple. I'll read the bylaw and then get a mover and seconder, please. That bylaw 3777, 2020, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement between the Township of Montague and the Town of Smith Falls for the provision of planning consulting services. Be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 5th day of May 2020. All in favor? Sorry, all in favor again, everybody? Okay, opposed? So that is carried.
Sorry, Bill, what was the mover and seconder on that one?
Sorry, it's not, I can't, I won't call the vote yet because I need to get a mover and seconder first. So that was moved by Claus and seconded by Jeff. So all in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. And the next bylaw is 3778-2020, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council.
That's the closing bylaw there, Bill.
Yeah, okay, so before I do that, I'm going to go to Christie, I think, to, yeah, there's no correspondence and there's no action item. So Christie, do we have any questions from the public?
I've been monitoring Facebook and email and YouTube, and I see nothing as of right now.
Okay, thank you then. This motion is that bylaw 3778-2020 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its regular meeting held on Tuesday, May the 5th, 2020. Be read for a second and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 5th day of May 2020. Mover and second, please. Moved by Karen and seconded by Jeff. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And a mover and seconder to adjourn, moved by Karen, seconded by Claus. That this meeting do now adjourn at, can someone just give me the time, please?
7:03.
7:03 p.m. until May the 19th, 2020 at 6 p.m. or until the call of the Reeve, subject to need. All in favor? Okay, and that is carried. And I think what we'll do is we'll take, say 3 minutes. Can we take 3 minutes to change over to the next meeting?
So we're gonna stay live. I'm gonna mute everybody. Please keep in mind that your video feed will still remain live, okay? So I'm just gonna mute you so you can make some noise, but your video is gonna keep going as live.
So we'll take 3 minutes, please.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I unmuted you, Bill.
Okay,
I saw you were talking.
yeah.
We're still missing Claus and Ian. I'm enjoying not having to wait for the bathroom though. That's nice. And how much do you want to put any money on the fact that Claus is going to come back with a bowl of ice cream or some sort of like treat?
Not a bad idea.
Jasmine,
Yeah, I thought about it.
Jasmine muted me, but I know
You're
just-
not muted, Bill.
I'm off now.
Yeah, you're on. We can hear you.
Okay, thank
Oh,
you.
look, what is it? Is it ice cream?
So are we live still now, Jasmine?
Yes.
Okay, so everybody's fine. We can start.
Unmute everybody.
Okay, then, so welcome to everybody. This is our committee of the whole meeting of the May the 5th. And so welcome to everybody and all who may be listening. I do have a motion first that the committee of the whole agenda dated May the 5th, 2020 be approved. Moved by Karen. And seconded by Jeff. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And I will also again remind all of council that if you have a disclosure of interest, you may declare it now or anytime during the meeting. And moving on, we have no delegations. And the first report is going to be from our fire chief, Miles Greer, and that is on the fire half-ton truck. So Miles, you have the, I was going to say the floor, but the podium or the screen, whichever you want. Thank you, Miles.
Thank you, Reeve Dobson. As you're aware, I put in a report for the recommendation of a Chevy Mike Fair Chevrolet being the lowest bidder of the truck. So I've made a recommendation that we go with Mike Fair Chevrolet. This was passed back in our budgeting for this vehicle. In my report, it states the price of the truck with less than the accessories, because with the COVID-19, I'm having a hard time getting anybody to quote on my accessories. So in the report, it's the base price of the truck, less accessories.
Okay, so I'll open it up if we have questions. First, Claus and Karen.
Thanks for the report, Fire Chief Miles. Will you be able to obtain the accessories later on, and can they be put on after you receive the truck?
That was my goal here, was to get the basic truck in progress and get it moving. And then as things open up here, we can go ahead. In my report, I've shown the dollar figure that I have left for accessories in the report. So that is the goal here for sure.
Thank you.
Karen?
Just a question. I noticed that we haven't got a lot of tenders coming in. Where was this posted?
So this was actually posted to our website. It was put in the local newspaper, and I personally sent out 7 different tenders to different car dealerships.
Yes, Karen?
Is there a reason we don't post it on, there's one that has to do with municipal vehicles or something, so that dealers, say for example, other dealers also see it?
Like such as like Mercs.
Could be that it. I just know that there's one where it does then get seen by a broader base than just a couple. And then second question is there a reason that the accessories weren't in the tender as originally?
Well, Mike Fair Chevrolet or any of the local car dealerships, I didn't have that spec'd in because most of them don't do the accessory end of it, so it wasn't spec'd in on my specs.
It'd be more specialty accessories that would be more fire related, like lights or things like that.
The truck cap and the pull-out bed liner, I think, though, you can get through dealers, can you not?
Yeah, in hindsight, I probably could have put that in my specs, but when I put them out, I hadn't added it. I thought I could probably get that done cheaper through a private dealer rather than a car lot.
So back to the one question, the first question that Karen had there about the advertising that other way. What was it called? What did you call it,
Mercs.
Jasmine? Mercs. So that was the question. I guess that wasn't answered yet. So
I was unaware of a Mercs, and I apologize for that. We like to, of course, keep local businesses going, and so that was my aim here, was local businesses, basically.
the other obvious good thing about keeping it local is that for any maintenance, it's quite a bit easier to be able to just do it locally rather than having to drive it to Kingston or Ottawa or whatever, I guess. So, any other questions on this? Ian?
Yeah, Chief, do you believe that we'll be able to get all the accessories in for the 45,000? That only leaves.
Yes, I believe that I'm going to get, 80% of the accessories. The quotes that I have got back are a little bit larger than I expected, but I may have to just leave a couple items off and look at next year doing it in my regular budget process.
Okay, I have a motion here. I'll read it and then get a mover and seconder, please. That is that the Committee of the Whole received the following report, the fire half-ton truck report, and that the following be recommended to council. That council award the contract to Mike Fair Chevrolet Buick GMC Cadillac Ltd in the amount of $36,986 plus applicable HST, and that council directs staff to purchase $7,235.70 plus HST of discussed accessories. All in favor of this?
Have a mover.
Sorry, yeah, moved by Claus and seconded by Jeff. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, and this is carried. And thank you. Thank you, Miles, for that report.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Okay, thank you. I guess, is that all that we need Miles for, I think? Do we,
Yeah, we're gonna kick Miles off
did
now.
you say?
Goodbye,
Okay,
Miles.
we're moving on to the next report. The next report, and that's the recreation feasibility study. And that report is going to be yours, Jasmine.
I think you skipped one there, Bill.
I did? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry about that. Yes, I did. Sorry about that. Well, it's still yours, but it's going to be the building condition assessment.
Yes.
Sorry about that, everybody.
I was gonna say that's kind of like the biggest one on the agenda today. So, so this is a pretty big report. In the fall of 2019, township staff released an RFP for building condition assessment. The building condition assessment was something that was discussed, and it upholds one of our strategic planning principles that we talked about and adopted in 2017, which is to get a better idea of where our facilities are. And provide us, a replacement or repair program. So the BCA is attached, and I know it is quite a big report. It's a lot to digest in, less than 4 days. Ultimately, the report has indicated that the majority of our buildings, with the exception of the sand and salt dome and the picnic shelter, are either in poor or critical condition based on the facility condition index formula. I just want to note, I have the actual report up on my screen. So if you put up your hand to ask a question, I'm not going to see it. So you could probably make a verbal noise if there's something that I'm touching on you want to ask a question about in particular. Okay. The facility condition index is basically a calculation, which is the sum of the outstanding deferred maintenance divided by the replacement value of an asset. So a poor rating indicates that a lot of the repairs that you would need to bring it up to the current value, it actually almost outweighs the residual value of the building itself. The report provides a number of options for moving forward, including potential new buildings or renovation of existing buildings. I think that a lot of the conclusions in the report are not particularly surprising in that there haven't been really significant investments in the buildings, any of the buildings, in a number of years. We have done some since I've been here, but the renovations and kind of the redoing of certain facilities have been relatively piecemeal. The administration building, most of the buildings are reaching above 50 years old. So there's certainly work that needs to be done. We have also talked at the council table a number of times about health and safety issues in the fire and public works buildings related to space. And that's certainly something that the report addresses as well. And there's also issues in the administrative building, and that we are aware that the building is not accessible at this time. So certain buildings continue to report health and safety challenges to staff. And I think the fire building is probably the particularly one that is just, we are simply running out of space, and it is almost no longer safe. Also notable in the report is that the white storage buildings are identified as, as critical projects. I do want to note that the Public Works Manager, Jamie McCarthy, and I are going to be working to bring back recommendations to council about those white buildings. They are critical, and they were identified as potential hazards. So they will need to be dealt with sooner rather than later. So we'd like to bring back a report just to deal with those white buildings. Overall, like I said, it's a very detailed, it's a very big report. There's some other issues or other kind of concurrent things that are happening right now. It is expected, and there is certain many news stories, and it's been talked about in municipal associations, that there's likely to be infrastructure funding coming up. So it would be prudent for us to prepare for that type of infrastructure grant funding from the province or the federal government. Because we're in a financial crisis, stimulus funding is often used to stimulate the recovery. But even in good years, there is often infrastructure funding available. It is imperative that we have to have shovel-ready projects to apply for funding. It's increasingly evident that our municipal facilities represent a barrier that is simply not affordable to the general taxpayer of the Township of Montague to do a fulsome renovation or replacement if that's the way council chooses. But we are up against a wall in that there are significant changes that happen. So there are steps that we can take to potentially use the facility work as a shovel-ready project for applications. It's would hit a lot of the normal infrastructure funding buzzwords, including health and safety, energy efficiency, and accessibility. So I understand that this is a lot. So I tried to put together some options, and I want to be clear that the recommendations in this report is not wholesale, let's move forward, and committing council to replacing or renovating our buildings right now. So what we did is I put together a couple options, basically to move some planning steps forward. So the recommended option is option 1, which is to potentially actually, so I'm gonna back up, sorry. The BCA recommends engaging architectural services to actually put together certain layouts for the buildings, for the replacement of the buildings, or for new buildings, which would be necessary for the fire building and potentially the public works building. Rather than doing a full RFP and getting new studies, it may be possible for those municipalities who have done, say, a fire hall replacement. We could actually use an existing plan and see if we could actually develop a architectural design to work within our own current property for a low cost. And what this would do is to move that forward is just to start the conversation with council to how the facilities could look and how it would work, and provide us with that study and that thing in our back pocket, that if there is significant funding that comes up, we could actually say, hey, we actually have a plan, we've gone through this is what we want to look at, and potentially apply that way. So the recommendation isn't necessarily committing council to one option or another, but just to actually further the planning process and further the information gathering to see where we could be. The other part of the recommendation is for staff to proceed with pricing out what it would cost to lay out a renovation to the administrative building, which was also a recommendation in the building condition assessment for, there was a couple items. So the public works building was recommended you could either replace or renovate, and the renovation would be cheaper in order to provide increased square footage. And then the second recommendation for renovation was related to the fire building. So because the fire building is so constrained, the recommendation was to build a new fire building plus renovate the existing fire hall to expand the admin building. And that most of that analysis is on page 25 of the report. And certainly is the more lower cost option. So the recommendation is for staff to bring forward quotations to see what it would cost to actually do a renovation layout and have somebody come in and actually look through the building. So that's basically a summary of the report and a summary of what the current recommendation is. I do want to make it clear that the recommendation is not intended to kind of let's make a decision on this building right away. I know this is a massive decision for council to make, and it's certainly large volumes of money, but it's a recommendation to kind of put a little bit more of those planning pieces together and provide council a little bit more additional information to ensure that you have all of the information to make the decisions properly, and potentially provide us with some background for potential funding applications.
So Jasmine, you mentioned that the idea about a new fire hall. I think was it in the recommendation that if we were putting up a new fire hall could possibly be built on the west side of the public works building?
Yeah,
and possibly even be incorporated with that building. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there was two options. One was for it to be incorporated with the public works building and or next to, and then the other option would be potentially to have it on the 22 acres. Of course, the 22 acres does have the additional barrier that there would be site grading and work that would need to be done to the site. But those were the two things that were mentioned in the report.
So looking at, there's advantages probably on both sides, but one advantage of doing it on the west side of the public works building would be that the site's already there, so that would save a lot of effort and money and stuff. And I suppose if it was built as part of the Public Works building, then some of the utilities obviously could be shared between the two, I would assume. But I'm going to open this up to council for now, Jasmine, and thanks for the initial report here, but I'm going to open it up to council, and I first have Claus.
Thank you, Ray. Thanks for your report, Jasmine. It's fantastic reading, that's for sure. The very first page kind of caught me, the executive summary. I was a little disappointed that there was no coring done into the walls or cutting into a wall to do any testing, or no testing done by instruments or whatever. This was basically just a visual report that they did. Took pictures and did a visual thing more than anything. There was no core testing or no heat loss calculation testing done or anything, right?
No.
I just thinking maybe that would have been helpful. Secondly, this is a huge major decision we're going to make. I'm wondering, I mean, I'm quite willing to discuss it tonight and so forth, but I'm wondering if we could somewhat table the major part of this discussion for a special meeting to go through this report detail by detail and make a real good decision as which way we should go. Because to me, whatever way we go is a decision for me for the next 50 years. I don't want to handle this off to some other council to deal with in 10, 20 years from now.
That's a good idea. I would suggest, it is a very big report and it's a lot to consider. I would suggest if there's anything else additional that council might want to see, like if we could, potentially get pricing and layouts from other municipalities for, say, their fire halls, so we have the pricing they provided in the report is good, but all it is based on the construction indexed times square footage. So it's an estimate, but we could actually bring forward, and that's kind of the recommendation in option one, is we could have that fulsome discussion, a special meeting where we only talk about facilities, and I could bring forward that information in option one that says this is how much it could possibly cost, and have a stronger idea of particularly the fire department and the Public Works building.
You have a follow-up clause, and then to Ian.
Yeah, just to follow up on my first comment, I'd like to see us, before we get further into this, to see a heat loss calculation testing done on especially the administration building itself. The garage, I'm sure it is what it is, but a heat loss calculation and possibly some further testing within the structure itself. A little more in-depth look.
That's going to add more cost initially, isn't it?
Yeah, I realize that. But if you're going to renovate the existing building and find out that we're losing heat and spending money on heating, but then we're going to spend $70,000 to $80,000 in renovating, we haven't accomplished a heck of a lot.
Okay, Ian.
Well, I think that, I definitely don't want to run around spending a whole bunch of money on reports. I think that we really need to nail down, what it is that we need to do. Is there an interest to go to the 22 acres? Is there not? Are we staying where we are? Are we renovating what we have? I think that, we need to narrow that down for staff. There's just, the options are endless. And, we can go around and around and around in circles. For me, I think that we need to work with what we have and look at the best cost options that are available to do the renovations. And not only that, this needs to be phased in gradually. I don't know how we can do that, but I'm hoping that it's possible. Because right now, money may come free flowing and it may not. And, we need to make sure that we look at the end game, which is the taxpayers, and making sure that we, spend our dollars appropriately. And we avoid any unnecessary tax increases for people, especially at this time right now. So I think that as far as heat losses and everything else like that goes, you put that out in the tender itself, that everything has to be brought up to today's code. So there's installation values and everything else like that that would be applied to ensure that, at the end of the day, the heat loss met, the today's more stringent code of what was, from the past 50 years ago.
I'm thinking that I don't want us to rush into making a decision, because obviously they're big decisions. But to Ian's point, Ian, to your point, it would be really clear, if not tonight, possibly at the next meeting, that we could kind of get consensus from council whether we should be utilizing any of the 22 acres right now. Because if we decided, no, we're not going to utilize for the 3 buildings, I'm saying the administration, fire, and public works, if we decide we're not going to be utilizing the 22 acres, then it narrows it down and helps us to make the decision. I'm kind of, from the comments that we've heard and the initial report and reading the report, most of it I have, it's kind of looking like if we went to a new fire hall, that would then mean that we would probably be only looking at renovation of the administration building, which would also include the old fire hall. So that would be one decision. We would be, the other part of the decision would be a new fire hall. I would think it really makes sense if we were going to do a new fire hall. It seems to make sense to put it west of the Public Works building. And then I guess the decision would be whether we need to just renovate the Public Works or put up a new Public Works. It would be nice to, I'm hoping that we don't force ourselves into making a too big of a decision tonight. It would be certainly nice to get a little bit of consensus. I agree with you, Ian, that I think it's pretty important that we decide, first of all, because if we decided we were going to be going to the 22 acres for any of these 3 buildings, then we are talking brand new. We're not talking renovations anymore. We're talking brand new. So that's going to be a decision that council will have to make, I think, sooner than later. But those are just some comments. And Ian?
Yeah,
Back to you, Ian.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, sorry, Ms. Ralph, Jasmine's had her hand up there if she'd like to say something, I think.
Sorry, thank you, Ian. I think the idea of the phase-in program is, I think, an excellent one. And I want to make it clear that I think, Ian, you did hit the nail on the head, is that right now staff is looking to council. I don't want you to make any decisions tonight on what we're going to do with anything, with any particular piece of property. That's not what we're looking for right now. We are looking for council direction on what information do you want to see, and how we can move this forward, and how best can we structure this discussion to actually help facilitate council make this decision. We totally understand that this is a massive decision to make. So
did I, Ian?
Yeah, well, I'm going to speak out here. For me, the 22 acres is really off the table. I don't think that we need to go there. I don't really want to go to the 22 acres. It's a lot more costly. And at the end of the day, I guess my vision for the 22 acres is more recreation than it is a municipal complex. I think that we have a lot of stuff already on the current site that can still be utilized and the cost can be taken advantage of. So I think that going forward, I would personally like to see that. I think that narrows it down for me. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on that or not, but that's definitely for me an easy way to do it, and it can easily be phased in, I think. The other thing is we're asking about architectural services. I really highly suggest that we go to a RFP for design build. Mm-hmm. Let the company put the cash out to do the flow of what it is, and let them bring it to us. And then once you bring the person, that saves us some money.
Okay.
Claus?
Yeah, on the fact of the 22 acres, I do feel that to use that for recreational purposes would be better served. The other thing is, if we went totally new build, we have a problem. What do we do with the old building that would be left over or whatever? So to try and utilize what we've got might be the better approach. But I do feel, like I said earlier, we need to have possibly more time to digest this whole report and have more discussion on future meetings, a little more time.
So Claus, to also respond to your comment about what do we do with the buildings, obviously as I was saying, the old fire hall, that would be that if we decided we needed a new fire hall, and it is pretty well unusable, I guess, space-wise, but if we did, then we wouldn't be doing much to change the overall footprint of that whole building, fire hall administration, because the whole thing would become administration. So we would be working with what we had, and the fire hall would end up maybe possibly being brand new. The question would be, what would we do with the old Public Works building? And did I see a question there? Yes. I'm going to go to Karen. And were you finished? Did you have a follow-up, Claus, first?
I'll follow up after Karen.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Karen and then I think maybe Ian had his hand up again. So Karen, please.
So it was a 20-year review is what this was, with reference to all the renovations that they said or upgrades that were going to be needed.
Mhm.
But was there a spot that showed, because we had a discussion before about adding an extra bay at the end of the fire department and adding extra bay on the Public Works for their equipment versus building that new fire hall? Was
So-
that not?
Apologies. The adding the extra bay for the fire department wasn't included because the fire hall itself is too narrow for, like, right now it's not just the extra bay at the end of the fire hall, it's also the width of the fire hall in its entirety. The Public Works building, the renovation options were included to expand the square footage of the whole building. But the fire hall there wasn't a recommended renovation option for the fire hall. I don't believe that the consultants felt, well, I mean, I can't tell you exactly how the consultants felt, but there was the only one that didn't have a renovation option. It's simply too narrow.
Yes, follow up, Karen.
So the trucks that are in there fit, it's just one of your trucks don't fit, correct? It's just very tight for it?
It's very tight. Yeah, most of the trucks are very tight. The county truck is also very tight. And certainly as we get into newer trucks, all of the trucks tend to get bigger. They're definitely not getting smaller, so.
Yes, Karen.
So we can't add bays to the end of that to make the correct size versus building new?
Yeah, I mean, you could add one longer bay to maybe defer a potential renovation, but as you replace each truck, it's likely to encounter the same issues each time because the trucks are getting bigger and the actual facility is quite narrow.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Ian and then to Claus.
Jasmine, the old white sheds, the wooden sheds that are at the back, where do they currently use to house?
So the one is used for general storage. They're not climate controlled or anything. And the other one is used for storage during the summer. And then in the wintertime, the Kavanaugh truck is parked in there. The county contract truck.
So as a solution, possibly, is it possible to retrofit the administration building in the first 2 bays of the fire hall up to that point? Add a couple bays onto the existing garage that would be large enough eventually for graders or whatever it is that may need be. And in the meantime, we can park a couple fire trucks in there so that we can slowly make a transition and have a little bit of time to, to put some things together and not have to spend a massive amount of money
All at once.
all at once.
I mean, we could review that option. If that's what council wants to see, we can see like almost like a piece by piece renovation.
And then, that kind of, we can do it in stages, phases. And then, maybe it's 3 or 4 years before you build 4 or 5 bays beside the township garage for a fire hall. And then the township garage gets those extra bays that we're housing the fire trucks temporarily.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm going to go to Claus.
Thanks, Reeve. My thought is to try and prioritize this here, because those storage sheds, as Ian had just brought up, and you mentioned too, Jasmine, were a priority to the fact that they're dangerous. And that, so those should be addressed right away. And again, maybe not to repeat Ian. Sorry?
Yeah, Jamie and I are going to be bringing a report together, or just Jamie, to talk about just those white storage sheds. I thought it was a little bit too much all at once. So we
Yeah.
will be bringing a report in the next couple of weeks to provide options as well for that.
Yeah, so I do agree with Councillor Straight, maybe to phase this in a little bit, but you have to remember when you phase things in, renovations sometimes become a little more expensive than new. And renovating what we've got, we have to understand, I'm not disagreeing with renovating what we've got, that's maybe our best option. You're renovating an older building, and it'll always be an older building. And some of the major problems that have happened with that building will probably not go away just because you renovate.
Jeff?
So I guess this is a great discussion, and I mean, and the comments are fantastic, which I think is, and it's not going to be an easy decision, like everybody has said. I mean, I agree. The 22 acres. I think everybody knows my feeling of the 22 acres. I strictly want that as recreation. The only advantage I would see is of anything being over there. What I would say would be the administration office, but I don't see that as a financial option. If we had a recreation complex out there, because then we have this admin building that it'd just be a lot of money to do that. So I mean, that I'd like that as a pipe dream, but I don't think it's realistic. I think we need to also look at the that overall footprint and to say what kind of plan do we want to have for it, and I think we need to have another meeting for that entirely, for sure, to say, okay, what do we want to do? Is it make the administration building one big building and eliminate the fire hall out there altogether, move the fire hall to the west side like Bill's saying? I mean, that's a discussion we need to have a plan for and to sit down with, because if we have the blueprint, in my opinion, we have that blueprint written out, it doesn't mean that blueprint has to be done the next 2 years. And you can have a phase-in approach, but it's like, how do we then go after the grant funding and go after the infrastructure funding that could be out there to fulfill that plan? Like, so I think whatever plan we put together, saying it, and just for hypothetical sake, we make that admin building all one admin building, and we eliminate the fire hall. We expand onto the public works garage so it can fit and tie it into a new fire hall, and that's what we're drawing up as a plan. That's great, and what it costs associated to it, and then saying, okay, well, what is the stages that we could do that, and how can we go after the funding to do it? So like in year 1 through 5, it could be, or 1 through 3 could be to build a new fire hall, and then years 5 through 10 would be to retrofit the entire admin building. So I think that's one thing. On Claus's point for the renovation, I think one of the biggest thing, and maybe that's where the concern of the core samples that he was referring to, is, I mean, like they came back saying the nuts and bolts of that building is pretty good. So like the outer shell is good, which if it wasn't, if we had cracked foundations, then I think we're talking about rebuilding, but it's clearly going to be cheaper to renovate that building. So I mean, I like the options of renovating the public works garage and expanding it, renovating that admin building. I mean, the new fire hall, I don't know if there's another way around it. I hear Karen's, I would listen to exploring what Karen's saying though, about as far as expanding on the back of the, if that's a possibility. And then the white shed system, I know there's going to be a report coming from Jamie and Jasmine. I kind of foresee that. I don't know why we need to have 2 sheds. I would almost say, like, why we not make one big one? But I think that's in the discussion too as well. So that's kind of my 2 cents. But on the same token too as well, I don't know where we can go with direction from this. Like I think it's got to be an idea of where we're going, but we can't we need to have another sort of big sit down meeting to figure out what we're going to do, I think.
Okay, Jasmine?
So I'm going to make a suggestion. Councillor Straight did bring up the idea of putting together an RFP for design build services. What I could do for an upcoming meeting, potentially its own dedicated meeting, is put together, like similar to the recreation feasibility study report, which is the next report, is put together a design build RFP terms. Here's what council wants to see in a potential RFP. Here are the options that we want you to review, like compare them cost wise. Like what I could do is put together those terms similar to that recreation feasibility study report for council to discuss and ensure that we're capturing everything that you want to see moving forward in terms of renovations.
Jasmine, I have a question, just a general question first. Regarding the possibility of the infrastructure funding, the stimulus package and so on, what are the chances of one being better than the other? You know, just renovating some of the buildings, or choosing one of the buildings and going new. Like, what's the chances of us getting that funding? Which way is better?
I think as long as we can demonstrate that we're improving health and safety for workers, we are improving the accessibility of our facilities because our facilities are not accessible, and we can improve that we're making our facilities more energy efficient, which will make us more sustainable in the long run. Any option that council can put together that can hit on those points will make it a more compelling funding application.
I'm going to go to you, Jeff, but just, I don't want to forget the what we were talking about just before I said that, because we'll have to get consensus from council to give staff direction to look into what Jasmine was saying. So keep that in mind.
Actually, I want to comment on that basically, and it's to kind of go along.
Okay, so Jeff, that's yours.
Is that good?
Go ahead,
Okay.
Jeff, thanks.
I like the idea. So is the idea sort of to tender an RFP, sort of a designer, so then we could sit down in a meeting with that designer, like to discuss the options, and they can kind of say, yes, this is possible, this is not possible. You know what? I can draw that up for you. Is that like that's where I see us going? Like I'd like to sit down, like almost do an RFP for like that architectural designers, I guess, so that they can come down and sit with us as a council group, and we can have that open meeting and really openly discuss the options and how that works. Is that kind of the direction we want to go? That's where I like to see us go. And then after that, then that person can kind of start to draw up those plans that we're talking about. But they can also kind of tell us during that discussion that, you know, what you're saying is a pipe dream, what you're saying is unrealistic, or, you know, that's a better option, or anything else.
Consultation process could absolutely be included in an RFP.
Okay.
And at that, doing it that way, like, it's not costing us anything yet. I think Ian pointed out that let them do the work and let them incur the cost. But Ian, I'll go to you. You had your hand up.
Yeah, so typically the design build is, you put the RFP out, they'd all come to a site meeting on a specific date and meet Jasmine. Jasmine would outline what exactly it is she wants. They take the envelope of what it is, and they'll come up with a creative designs and give you pricing in regard to it, bring it back to you, and then you can pick who you want. And as Jasmine mentioned, you can definitely consult with them at the end of it or throughout the process to make sure you get things tweaked the way exactly you want it.
Okay, Karen.
So Ian was not finished?
Well, no,
Sorry.
One last point was, Ms. Rolfe, can we, for the next meeting, when you bring the report back, can you please identify how much money is in reserves for administration upgrades, fire hall? Because there is some money set aside already for that, is there not?
Yes, I can put that in the report. Absolutely. Yes, there is.
Please. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Karen.
So I was looking for clarification, because when they're saying about having an architect do a design, but don't we tell them what design we're looking for them to do?
Yeah, like I was thinking that same thing, Karen, because my concern is, like, shouldn't we have to, as a council, be a slight bit more clear in what direction we are going to go? Like, we're talking administration, fire hall, public works. are we talking about renovating everything? Are we talking about one of the buildings being new, others being renovated? It would be nice for us to be slightly more clear in what direction we want to go, so that when we do put out the RFPs, it makes a little bit more sense. But I'm not sure if that's what you were thinking of, Karen.
Well, yeah, because
let
I
you
think,
respond and then go to Jeff. So Karen?
yes, that's what I was thinking, because I understood that you're putting the RFP out, but there's also a cost to put that out. So every time we ask them for modifications, it's going to cost again, correct?
What kind of cost is it when we do this, Jasmine? Like, what kind of cost is it when we just put the RFP out?
So the RFP itself, if you exempt the local advertising requirements, which in this case I would definitely recommend, they're very low cost to actually put out. It does take staff time, of course, to put them together, but they're pretty low cost to put out. The key with ensuring that you have a fulsome RFP is that essentially I would do, like I said, almost exactly the same as the report for the recreation feasibility study, which basically says, here's all the terms. Let's make sure that these terms are exactly what you want. Then we release the RFP. It doesn't cost us to necessarily make changes, but you're right. We do have to have an idea of what we want from the RFP, but you can provide them with direction in the terms to basically say, give us options and make a recommendation on what options you think is the most affordable.
Yeah, I still think would be kind of nice if we got some kind of consensus. I'm not saying we have to tonight, but just some kind of general consensus of what direction we want to go in. But I'm going to go to Claus and then back to you, Karen.
Well, as I said right from the start, we need to have a consensus of what we want. And I think this is going to take a separate meeting, as Jeff has said, for us to sit down and figure out really what we want and so forth. And to have an architect do a design build, which I don't have a problem with, through an RFP or whatever. They're not going to do this for free. An architect's not going to go to all that work and do it for nothing.
Karen?
So there will be some costs.
I guess,
Karen?
because that was the thing. I thought we'd maybe have a discussion, and then when you put the RFP out, we'd say to them, here's like 3 different scenarios that we want them to sort of design out for us and give us the costing, so that whether it be that at the end of the Public Works garage, the additional bays are added for the bigger trucks, and then later on the Public Works goes into that, or whether it's a standalone fire department. I thought that was sort of the thing. We tell them what we want so that they quote on it exactly like that.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, and that's what the intent of like the next report will be. So it'd be good to get a little bit of direction now, so that we can have terms that are acceptable. So do we want to or do we want to just wait and give it some thought and provide that fulsome direction at the next meeting? And staff can make some suggestions and we can kind of hammer it out at the next meeting.
My opinion would be that it's such a huge decision that to take 2 weeks, for me it's not a big deal. And we have to remember that this is a committee meeting, and some of it has to be moved forward to a council meeting anyways. But to wait so that everybody can put more thought behind it, we've had a very good discussion. But to be able to take 2 weeks now and kind of digest all of the different comments, I think is a really more careful way to go. That's my opinion, but it's up to council. Claus, you had your hand up, I think.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'll ask it later.
Okay.
See where we're going to go.
More, okay. Ian, sorry, Jasmine, and then Ian, please.
I understand what everybody, sorry, Jasmine, go ahead, sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to move the conversation to something different, so go ahead, Ian.
I think that we don't want to push it along, but we need to have an idea of what we're doing relatively, so that we can fix the roof on the administration building. So we can't, if we sit here and we talk about it, and then we wait another meeting and then we talk about the RFP, haven't done an RFP yet. So I think it's really important that we get a base RFP started for the next council meeting so we can discuss it. We're not architects. What we go to do a design build, it's setting out the criteria of what it is that you need. The architects or the person that's doing the design fits it in the envelope that's available to them as architecturally sound as they possibly can. That's how it goes. So if you want a conference room and 6 offices, a lunchroom and a washroom and a public washroom, you tell them that. They know what the criteria is and they'll do a layout for you based on that information that you give them. And you tell them where it is, option 1 for a fire hall, option 2 for a fire hall, et cetera, et cetera. It's rather simple.
Okay, Jasmine?
I think generally, and we haven't voted on this or anything like that, we have consensus to look at options for the RFP for the building condition assessment. I was just wondering about the interest in, as related to option 1, to are you interested at all in staff bringing back like potential layouts that we could find from other municipalities for replacement for any of the facilities? So that would include, you know, fire. Would we want to look to see if replacement is feasible, or for public works or for admin? And I want to be clear, my recommendation is to see if we can borrow or use other municipal blueprints and plans. I'm aware, you know, I think one of the Frontenac townships, as well as one of the townships in Leeds, have replaced fire halls. We might be able to use some of their blueprints and costing to have, just to bring back to the next council meetings, or probably not the next council meeting, but to a future meeting for council to look at. Are you interested in all in that?
So I think I understand the importance, Ian, what you said. I do understand that for sure, but the reason I'm suggesting that we give it the 2 weeks, I gave you some of the reasons, but the other reason is that it seems to me that we still have to collect a little bit more information, and that our staff is going to be doing that. And then I hate to be making a decision tonight and then collecting information in the next 2 weeks. Excuse me, in case it was the wrong decision. 2 weeks is not a long time to wait, but I'll let you go. I'll go back to you, Ian, please.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, David, and I agree with you. I agree wholeheartedly that we don't want to jump into it, with 2 feet. But I think that if we have an option to look at what the RFP looks like, the staff's prepared, then it's something that we can discuss, and we can still have those conversations 2 weeks from now. If we have no RFP prepared for the next meeting, we can't really even converse about it, and we got to wait another meeting after that. So I just think that if we have a sample of what it might look like, then we all have a better idea, I think, of what it is going to entail. Does that make sense? Or
yeah, I have no problem with looking at a prototype. There's no problem there
to converse with it. There's nothing cast in stone. For me, one of the biggest things is making sure that there's no tax increases for taxpayers. So we need to figure out, we got to put our thinking caps on and make sure that we do this in a fashion that's feasible.
Claus?
So question, in 2 weeks time, then we're going to discuss this again, which I agree. We need to, with that 2 weeks, and look at, as Councillor Straight said, an RFP. What is going to be in that? What are we asking staff to put into that RFP?
So I'm going to bring back the direction that I understand is that I'm going to bring it back design build terms that will look at potential options for renovations. So we've heard a couple suggestions which can be included, and then of course we can discuss that again at the next meeting. We could include the recommendations from the assessment, along with a shorter, like a phased-in program with like a modified program where it's essentially like a piecemeal. And I guess, is there anything else you want to see in the report?
So I think, do we have consensus then by council to move this forward, as Jasmine was suggesting? I'm just going to go around and try to get consensus around this, okay? I'll go Ian.
Yep.
Jeff.
for the most part, I'm not a big fan of the piecemeal. I'd like to have a plan for the whole kit and caboodle, for a better, lack of a better word, way of saying it. But I mean, I'd rather have a plan for that whole system. And then work
I think,
towards that.
yeah, I think that,
Piecemeal thing I'm afraid of. I'd rather us like say, this is what we want to do, and this is what it's going to look like. And it might take us 10 years to get there. And that's fine. But, you know, like, let's do that. And on the other side of it, I like the idea of stealing blueprints from, and like the one that I see that we may have to rebuild, that's inevitable, is probably the fire hall. And that's where we could hopefully steal blueprints from anyway. So that's right. I agree on that side of it.
and I think that we still will be in a little bit more position in 2 weeks. If we allow it to move forward now, we can still move it forward again in 2 weeks more. So I'll go to next to Karen. Do we have consensus from you to do this?
Yes,
And Claus?
Yes, I would agree to do this, but I'd like to be specific that what we want. We want the fire hall put at the end of the garage. We want to renovate the administration building into the fire hall. And as Jeff had said, maybe it has to be done piecemeal, but I think we have to identify what we want in there's RFP.
Yeah. Yeah. Ian?
We just have to understand the cost of what the whole cost is going to be, and then it's going to be done in phases, I would assume.
Yeah. Well, I think we would be a little closer to the decision in 2 weeks. We may have a little bit more of an idea of cost. Obviously, when we look at plans from other municipalities, an example would be the other municipalities have put up brand new fire halls. And if we can compare apples to apples as much as possible, then we would have an idea of that cost.
Mhm.
So Jasmine, you do have consensus to go ahead for the next 2 weeks, I think, and do this?
Yes, more information.
Okay. Believe it or not, I have to turn my lights on to see. Just 1 sec,
I
please.
was just going to say, you're in the dark, Bill.
There. So I do have a motion regarding this building condition assessment report.
So
And I'll read, pardon me?
I'm just gonna make a suggestion. I mean, option one is finding blueprints from other municipalities, so that part can continue, but because we're in committee, we don't have to do a motion to amend. But we could just kind of take out that with quotation for provincial renovation layout, given that the direction is basically for our terms. So I'd suggest that portion be taken out, if that's okay.
Well, that's making an amendment to this motion, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's because we're in committee, it's a little bit more of a casual process. You can do that with.
So would it just read then that council directs staff to proceed with option 1?
And as otherwise directed.
And otherwise directed?
That would include the RFP terms.
Okay. And then what about the last part?
That should probably be taken out because we'll have that discussion again.
Yeah.
If that's okay
I'm
with
going to
council.
read it. So I'm going to read this and make sure that it's okay with everybody before we vote on it. And we also will have to get a mover and seconder. But that council directs staff to proceed with option 1 and otherwise directed. Can I get a mover and seconder first, please? So this is moved by Claus and seconded, I think, by Ian, yes. No more questions and comments then? All in favor? That is unanimous. And that is carried. Okay, thanks to everybody for this, for your work, Jasmine and the rest of the staff, and also to council for, I think, what it was a very good first discussion. And you know, parts of this has been on the table probably for at least 4 councils. So I think we will feel good that we're moving it seemingly a little bit further than it's been moved before. So that's a good thing. Next, we're going to go to the next report, and that's the yours also, Jasmine. I believe that's the recreation feasibility study.
Yes, so this was a priority identified by council earlier, I think maybe last year, something that we talked about through our budgeting process. So I have put together the recommended terms for the RFP based on a review of a number of other recreation feasibility studies that RFPs that I came across. So I'm looking for council feedback on these terms. I'm also looking for exemption for the terms of advertising in the local paper. I don't really believe this will be a type of study that would be picked up by local people who would be grabbing the local paper. So I'm looking for an exemption for those advertising costs. So interested in the feedback.
Okay, I'll open this up to council. I see Karen first, and then Jeff. And did you put your hand up, Ian?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I'm going to go to Karen and Jeff and Ian.
Mine is that I'm not sure if now is the time we should be moving forward with it, considering what we've got on our plate. Also with the financial cost. And I mean, so I know it's down the road anyway, but is it a cost we should be going through if we're dealing with the buildings that we've got to deal with, as well as the COVID expenses and the capital things we were planning on anyway? So I'm wondering whether or not it's something we should be doing right now.
Okay, Jeff?
So I'm very excited that we're going forward with this, or hopefully going forward with this. I see this as a very positive thing that we can go forward with and to look at. On the other side of it too, as well as there could be lots of funding coming down, and funding comes down in many different avenues. And doesn't mean that we can't be going after the funding for like a fire hall or admin building. But there could be money specific for recreation too as well. And I want to make sure that we have a plan in place for that too as well. So right now, there once again, there's a cost to it, which we have the reserve money that can support it. And I think it's another one of those things to look at that will help us with our growth strategy too as well. And just to kind of ramble on a little bit more about that, I guess too, as well as that, if we like with COVID-19, I think there's going to be that sort of that eye opener for people, saying more people that might want to move out to the country, more people that want to, and we have to make sure that we're setting ourselves up to be that recipient of that. Because if we want to keep our tax bases low, one of the reasons why our taxes are going up is that we're a huge township with very minimal houses in it. We need to grow that, and with not a lot to offer. So if we can offer more and to look at ways to grow our housing. And I know we had to take the builders form off the table, but we're hopefully going to be able to put that back on the table next year. Those are all the things that are going to help actually us grow and actually keep our taxes lower. So this whole thing about like, is there a cost that's worth it? Well, there's a cost that's worth it that could actually help us keep our costs down as the future goes on. So I'm a big fan of us going forward with this. I like what we're looking at as far as what we're going to do, and the questions are in there. So thank you, and I really hope that all council sort of sees that all those benefits I talked about and how that long term will end up, like that long term thinking will actually be a cost benefit to all of our taxpayers in the future.
I just have a question before I go to Ian. Jasmine, it's for you. What is the cost of going ahead and proceeding with an RFP right now for this?
So because if council chooses to exempt the local advertising cost, there is very little to no cost other than staff time in putting out the RFP.
Okay, so that makes me feel good, and but I also have the same concern as Karen pointed out, but my concern is like, we have been just talking about thousands and thousands of dollars of renovation and possible new buildings. But I'm sorry, but I still have to go back to the idea that when I got on council 4 terms ago, that council and every council I think since said that the roads in Montague Township was the top priority. So councils have always said roads are the top priority over everything else. And we know that we've fallen behind. We've improved the roads over 15 years, and we get lots and lots of compliments. But many of our roads are still inferior. And we all know which roads those are. And, you know, our council did decide for no tax increase. We also, I guess, decided to not do any capital projects on new roads. So my big issue is still, you know, I feel we're moving quickly. You know, we're moving towards recreation, we're moving towards new buildings, possible renovation maybe, but we're forgetting about what to me is still the biggest priority. And councils, for 4 councils in a row, have said that it's about roads, roads, and roads. And yet we can't do it all. So it is a big concern of mine. So sorry about that rant, and I'll go on to you, Ian, please.
Thanks, Reeve. Listen, I, as much as anybody else, would love to be able to put up a great big recreational facility for everyone in our township. There's not one of us on council that would love to be able to do something like that for everyone that lives here to enjoy. Right now we have COVID-19. I don't think that, you know, I don't want to really spend any money that we don't have to. I also think that the feasibility study is missing some really big components for me. And the first thing that I really would like, before I even go down the road, is a growth study to understand how it is that we're going to afford to continue to pay for it once we even have it built. So, you know, we need to figure that portion of it out. How can we increase our income, and then we can start looking at a recreational feasibility study. But I've heard reports with the airport since I've been on council that it's a great asset and we can do all these commercial things, but we've never done anything. There's never really been any real measures or actions taken to make sure that we develop all the potential that's there. We know that we're on the outskirts of Ottawa. We haven't really, you know, taken huge leaps and bounds in any way, shape, or form to make sure that, you know, we're looking at development and everything else, and these development fees and the increased taxes revenue that we're going to see that are actually going to pay for, you know, the upkeep and the maintenance of a recreational piece of property. I think that needs to come first. I think we kind of got the cart before the horse, in my opinion. And I think that once we get those things, you know, in place and some way of measuring them to make sure that we're successful every year, then I think that we can take the next step on the road to recreation.
I think that we all have to look not just at these reports that we're talking about tonight, but we have to keep an eye on our bigger picture. And I made some comments to myself, for instance, this afternoon, because here we are trying to make some pretty big decisions, but I also think that we have to look at a few other things. We have to look at our roads needs study. We've already looked at it. We know where that stands. We have to look at our asset management plan. We know where that stands already. We have to look at the recreation survey that we did back last year, the year before, to do with you know, that came out of the survey and all the discussions in Rosedale Hall. And we have to look at our strategic plans and so on. And all of those have something to do with the decisions that we're making tonight, whether it be recreation or new buildings or renovation. Claus?
Thank you, Reeve. Based on Jasmine's comments that this RFP is not going to be very expensive, I don't see any harm in doing it, because I look at it as something that we can show to the public that we're looking towards the future. Just because we do this study and so forth and get the report, that doesn't mean that tomorrow we're going to build something. As Councillor Carroll said before, this may take 10 years from now or 15 years from now to go. But I think we have to show potential builders that want to build in our township and potential people who want to live in a township, that we're being progressive and moving forward, and recreation is one of the items. When people move into an area, they're looking at two things. Is there recreation? Is there churches by? Is there shopping? Are the roads in good shape? These are all things we have to look at. And we got to look at everything. We have to look at all the aspects on that if we want the township to grow.
So I have Jeff and Karen.
Yeah, and that's why I agree with that with Claus, because and I think a big part of it too, as well as is if we don't have projects on the go and getting them ready for shovel ready, and once again, like that's what we want to get the ball rolling, because we don't want to have something that comes up and we miss the boat because we decided, though, you know what, this is not the right time, this is not the right time. And I don't want to be overly critical of past councils, but I think that's been like sort of one of the issues is that we don't accomplish the end task. We talk about things and then we don't accomplish it. And I mean that with all due respect. That's why I would like us to move forward with things. And we've talked about it as a plan, so let's not derail it. Let's keep it moving forward, and let's make sure we have like plans in place and shovel-ready plans in place, because that's gonna then if those funding opportunities come up, we're ready for it and we're not scrambling. So I mean, that's why to me it makes sense for us to keep moving with this. It's not we're not dedicating money at this point. Like I mean, like the time to pull the plug is at the last possible second when we truly financially don't know that, or truly financially we can't afford it. We don't have that information right now. So for us to quash it because we think that we can't do it doesn't make sense to me. We have to think about moving it forward and continue it. And I agree with Bill about the roads. I think roads are definitely a problem. I think once again we've addressed a lot of that with the Roadstein study. We've addressed it with the counter, so we get understanding, and we can continue to count our roads. We can understand what roads are going to need the need they need to have, and continue with that. So I just want to keep moving forward with these projects that we talk about doing, because installing them is not going to help us at all.
So I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying there, Jeff. But as I said about back to the roads, though, we moved forward enough to maintain them properly, but we didn't move forward to do any capital work, little or no capital work. And as I say, we go back to we just have to listen to the people who call and the people who talk to us. And it hasn't just happened in the last month or two, but it happens all the time where we get people, and I could name 6 or 7 or 8 different, happen to be all gravel roads, you know, so like, and I agree, it's nice to have this, all these plans, and it would be nice to move it forward. And I happen to agree with doing this RFP. We have little or nothing I don't think we have enough of a reason not to do it. I think everybody's got really good concerns. I like the idea of moving this forward. I certainly have the same concerns as Karen, but the big thing is that if we move this RFP forward, it's Claus made a good point. Our builders see that we're looking at it progressive, you know, in a proactive way. It's not a huge amount of expense. We don't have to move forward with it right away. That sort of addresses your idea, Ian. I think everybody's got some pretty good ideas here, but we do have this motion to do with the RFP for the feasibility study. And oh, Karen, I think I have to go to you first. Sorry, Karen.
So my comment back was going to be, number 3 says complete a financial analysis. Well, I think you can contact your municipalities that are around you, and you'll be able to find out what their budgets are costing them to run recreational complexes. And for us to put a minor amount of financial investment into an RFP, since it's staff time to do it, it's the financial impact of what they come back with, because there is going to be a cost for them to do this. And then to not do it and shelve it for X number of years, the costing they've given you then is not going to be valid. So you can get some of this information now if you want to by contacting the municipalities around for what does it cost you to run those municipal complexes, you know, for based on the size of whether it be North Grenville, whether it be Carleton Place, whether it be City of Brockville, Kingston, wherever you want to go, they'll give you what those costs are. And they've certainly got the information about the revenues they're bringing in, which are all the lacking right now because of COVID. They've still got the expenses that go with it. So they'll give you this year, they'll give you last year, they'll give you the last 5 years, whatever you want. But again, if we're not going to move forward with it, what they're going to charge us to do a study and then say, here's what it will cost you to figure out whether or not, how much extra assessment we're going to need in order to run it. But then again, it's going to be, are you going to use it as a tax base or are you going to use it as a user fee? Because that's the whole thing is you move forward on user fees. And if you don't have the users using it to get those fees, or you have to price yourself out of the market, it defeats the purpose too.
Jeff?
And that's part of the study is to see the use of it. And that being said, there's not that many examples of these type of facilities too as well in our area. I mean, Beckwith is really our only example. And I'd be more than happy to direct staff to ask what the financial implications are to that specific recreational building that they have. Because to me, that is the need that is in the area. And I think I'm more than game to ask for that. But we don't have another example of other municipalities because nobody else has those. So in the area. So I mean, I think that's a big part of it. So I don't really want to shelf it anyways. I'm pretty confident we're going to come back with information saying that it's maybe a financially feasible thing to do, especially if we have grant funding. I think that's the biggest thing. We can't build on our own. Nothing can be built on its own. But there's grant funding options, and there's also the options of, and I've had discussions with people about it too as well that do it, is that they build the facility for you, sort of like what happened with Beckwith, and that company went into business, but those ideas too as well. And I think we need to, anyways, I think we can explore those opportunities.
So this is probably about the third time that we've talked about grant funding. So we were earlier saying there's grant funding for hopefully stimulus package for buildings and so on. Now we're talking about grant funding for recreation, and I agree with you there, Jeff. There will be, but as I said, I'm sorry, I have to still go back and think that if there's grant funding out there, I'd love to be able to see us
on the roads,
get grant funding to give some people a better road.
Bill, I don't disagree with you because I think and that was the whole point of the roads need study. And I mean, like we were adamant as a group, I think, to say like we want that roads need study to show that we are in rough shape, because that roads need study needs to tell us that we are not financially able to keep our roads up to date. So we, once again, that roads need study is now going to help us write the grant funding that some of our roads are not safe. And I mean, I think that's a lot of that is with the grant funding is making sure you're setting yourself up with the proper reports and the proper to tell you that you need that grant funding. If we don't have that stuff, then you have no chance whatsoever of going after it. And I think we're going the right track for the roads need study. I think now we're going on the right track, obviously, with the building assessments, and I think this is the next avenue too as well for our recreation. It's keeping all of those things going and in motion that we've discussed about for the last, I know for me in the last 2 years, and I don't want to derail anything.
Yeah, I'm going to go to, I think Jasmine, you have something to say, and maybe Karen, did I see your hand up also? Okay, so no. Jasmine, please.
Ian.
And Ian. So Jasmine first and Ian.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a point to reiterate that, the releasing the RFP itself doesn't cost money, particularly if we're not paying for those advertising costs. If it ends up being unreasonably priced, then certainly council can make the decision when the RFP results come back. Related to that. I had another point, but I've completely forgotten what it was. So I apologize for that.
Well, try to think of it and I'll come back to you. Ian?
One of my concerns with what we're asking is council hasn't even had a discussion about what it is that we want. So are we just talking about a building? Are we talking about another soccer field, a baseball diamond, a skating pad? What is it? We're going to rely on somebody else to tell us what we want. I think that's up to us to decide what it is that we want for our recreation facilities, not someone else.
So the intent
I
of
think that's
the,
I think the other thing that if we're gonna have staff time invested in something, I personally think that we need to look more into the development of the housing and how we get more people to build here, so we get development charges and increase the tax base, so we can pay for things like this.
so I think one of the intent is of the actual feasibility itself is to include an engagement strategy that includes stakeholders in the township, and the stakeholders would include council and to kind of, you know, what do you want to see, but also do a community needs study to make recommendations on what the actual needs are in the area.
I actually think that was what I know when I read the report, Jasmine. That was your first of 3 things that you were hoping would happen. And to me, trying to move this thing forward, I think it's actually that number 1 issue you brought up was probably the most important, because again, the public had input when we did the survey. They told us quite a bit about what they wanted. And it had to do with recreation, and it had to do with Rosedale Hall. And now what we would be doing as part of this would be, we'd be opening it back up to the stakeholders, most meaning our residents, and they're going to have another chance to be loud and clear as what direction they want to go in. So that's a really, really good point, I think, that's there. Karen?
Can you remind me again how many responded to that survey?
I don't remember. I don't remember.
Something like 12% of the population.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, it is considered a representative sample. I know I noted that when I presented it initially, but that is, it's actually considered a pretty high rate of response for those type of community surveys.
So anything else?
Like I said before, there's not one of us sitting here that doesn't want to do something. I just think that it's not, for me, it's not at the top of the ladder. I think that how do we encourage builders and developments and everything else like that should be more important. That's what's going to give us the money. That gives us our development charges, and that's how you fix your roads and be able to maintain these ventures.
So when a few years ago, I don't know how long ago, maybe Jasmine, you can help me with this. Did we not have a priority session? And in our priority session, we looked at what were our priorities there. As you saying, all of the things that we're talking about, they're all important. But as a council, did we not come up with certain priorities? And I was sure that at the top of our priority was roads, but I don't think anybody's saying that any of the things we're talking about is not important, but it's a matter of priorities, I think. But I think, like, we've heard a lot of different comments, and I'm willing to read this recreation facility study motion and get a mover and seconder and vote on it. We've heard many different comments about this, so I think I see one more person has a question or comment, and then I will go to the motion, and that would be you, Jeff. You have your hand up there.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like, we had priorities that we put forth, and we're going through and we're checking off our priorities. We went through the road need study. We made sure we put a lot of emphasis on it. We've done it with the building assessment. Now we're on the recreation side of things. We would have done the builders forum if it wasn't for COVID, obviously. And I don't think the builders forum is off the table, because I think we got to continue with that. But that's why I urge my fellow councilors to continue with this. It doesn't cost a lot right out of the gates right now, so we're not asking for a big financial input to it yet. but it's also, this is one of the priorities that we're moving forward with. I think we have moved forward on the priorities. So let's keep moving forward the ones that we've discussed and we've discussed in the past. And we're going to bring back up the builders forum when we can do that, when things are opened up so we can do that. And that's going to be our next one, that right on Ian's point, because I agree with you. And I think this goes hand in hand. I think those two things, as builders are going to ask us, why do people want to come here? Well, what are you focusing on? We have a huge focus on our roads and we have a recreational idea. And they're going to be like, that's pretty impressive. So I think that's why we want to keep all of these things going. That's my last two cents. Like I'm pleading because I really think that I do not want to be in this, the sort of the, what's been done in the past, saying, well, you know what, we're gonna shelf that. We're not gonna do that, and we don't accomplish it. That's my last plea.
Yeah, no, everybody's had great points, I think. So I'm going to read this motion here, and then get a mover and seconder. And this motion is that the Committee of the Whole received the following report, the Recreation Feasibility Study, and that the following be recommended to Council, that Council directs staff to proceed with an RFP for the Recreation Feasibility Study using the terms contained in this report, and that Council exempt the local advertising requirement of the procurement policy and direct staff to post the RFP online and identify companies to send directly. Do I have a mover and a seconder for this? So this is going to be moved by Claus and seconded by Jeff. If I see no other comments and questions, no hands up, so I'm going to call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? And that is going to be carried. So thanks to everybody for this, and I know that the conversations will continue. And thanks also for this report, Jasmine. The next report that's also yours, Jasmine, is going to be the 2020 donations report.
Great. Okay, so just pull it up. In the 2020 budget, Council provided $14,000 worth of budget funding for donations. The applications that were received are included on into this report. So there is the Big Brothers Big Sisters, the Smith Falls Public Library, Laws, and REAL, which is the Rideau Environmental Action League. And the project event details are provided in the summary chart, along with, I did actually include their application forms as well. There was also included, to be consistent with the process we followed last year, I included the Smith Falls and, excuse me, sorry, I keep getting hiccups every time I have to talk. The Smith Falls and Perth District Hospital Core campaign, as per, it was the procedure we followed last year. They didn't include a formal application, but they provided a letter, and they were asking approximately $20 per resident, which is about $74,000 in funding. Additionally, I added the chart for the cemetery funding as well, which was not included in the donations program, so they did not put in applications. We will be cutting those checks shortly. So I'm seeking, typically the next step would be to ask these organizations to delegate to Council. And the Smith Falls and District Hospital Foundations were actually scheduled to delegate to Council on March 17th. However, due to COVID-19, that was canceled. So I'm seeking Council's direction. Do you want to see delegations this year? We can incorporate delegations through Zoom, which would be essentially send those delegatees a invitation, the same as I send the council members to participate in a portion of the meeting, kind of like we've had staff do. So it's something that we can do, or Council can exempt that requirement for delegations. and provide some direction related to donations. So I'm seeking direction.
Ian and Claus.
Yeah, I think these are, for the most part, all people that come and ask us for money every single year. I guess one of my questions is for the Smith Falls Public Library. In reading what the request application says, and what the funds are going to be used for, in the event that there is no programming available due to COVID-19, what would those funds be then put towards? It would be my question for them. I have no problem with it. As far as the list goes for myself, I think it's pretty simple. We just walk down the list like we have before, and we say yay or nay, and go from there, unless anybody else has a different decision or option.
Jeff?
How much did we give laws last year?
I
I thought we gave them 5. That's why I'm just curious.
don't know. You just give me a minute, I can look it up.
Or did we decline them?
I think so too.
Did we decline them?
I said, we may have declined them. I'm not sure.
I
I'm pretty
believe
sure we-
last year that they applied for funding for regulation on cats,
The cat,
Yeah.
yeah.
if I'm remembering correctly.
Was it not for cats that they were asking for last year?
Yes.
And that's why there was a possibility. I'm just saying there might have been a possibility. I can't remember. We may have declined it.
They had a
But I
Program.
think, pardon me?
They had a cat program they wanted to do, and we were afraid that was going to cost an obscene amount of money because of all the wild cats that could be out there. It wasn't a wild cat program.
Yeah.
Yes,
That's
it was.
why we were not interested in that because we're like, that could cost like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
And this report, which I read, has to do with cats and dogs.
Yeah.
No, just cats.
Well,
I thought it talked about the amount of dogs and the amount of dogs that they do take in from Montague, didn't it?
It said 1 dog, I think, because we don't have them for our dogs.
Exactly.
well, they
but
don't
it's-
take dogs at all.
Yeah. So again, that's $700 to neuter some cats. I don't agree with that spay and neuter portion of it anyway, personally. Then if you buy your animal, then it's up to you as the owner to do the spay and the neuter. I don't think the taxpayers of Montague need to pay to spay and neuter a bunch of cats running around the township. Everything Big Brothers for me is good. Smith Falls Public Library again just is fine. Real's good, and the hospital for me is off the table.
Claus, I think you had a question.
Yeah, back to the cats, it was a special request they made. It was a special program they wanted to do, and they wanted like $1,500 at that time.
Mhm.
And I don't have a problem with, well, go down the list, Big Brother's $1,500, public library, no problem. If Laws is doing both cats and dogs, I don't have a problem. Real, I don't have a problem. I do have a problem with the Smith Falls Perth Hospital donation and that. I think we need some more justification on that. This is a fairly large ask just to send a letter in and ask for this kind of money without some more explanation as to what the hell they've done since the last time they came to see us. So I request that they would come and do a special delegation. And I think Jasmine, a question, they can have someone come in our Zoom meeting.
Yes.
Okay. The rest of them I don't have a problem with.
And I do want to note, I do actually believe it was direction from council in late 2019 to have the hospital foundation come as a delegation.
Yes, it was.
Well, I think we also wanted more financial information from them as well.
Yes,
Yes,
I believe
yes.
I sent that to them.
I think a further question was also what is happening through from coming down from the county also, and how was the county handling the donations and so on.
Yeah, we need a lot more information.
So the donations, when we're talking about donations to the Smith Falls Library, I think, are we also talking about a donation to the Merrickville Library?
So we we don't donate to the Maryville Library and Smith Falls Library. We do provide like a fee for our township residents to be able to use the library service.
So
this-
the ask that the Smith Falls Library is for something sort of on top of what we give them already.
Yes.
I seem to think that maybe we might be getting consensus here from council that we could move the Smith Falls Library, the Real, the Big Brothers Big Sisters. We could just simply move them forward for this year without doing a delegation. And we're asking for the Smith Falls Hospital to come and do a verbal request with explanation and costing. But is that consensus correct from council? Like, if so, then we can give that consensus to Jasmine, and we don't need to worry about doing delegations from at least 3 of those 4 requests. Claus?
Question, yeah. Jasmine, question, what cemeteries?
What?
The cemeteries.
They no longer have to go through the donations process. They are,
Oh, okay.
I did include the follow-up chart at the end. They're automatically,
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
That's written up in the report that we have, Claus.
Oh, okay, sorry. I scrolled down the next page.
So do I
Okay.
have consensus and from council that we could move those other 3? That's the Smith Falls Hospital request, sorry, the Smith Falls Library request, Big Brothers Big Sisters, and the Real. Could we move those forward this year without doing a delegation? Jeff, I see your thumb up. Ian, what about you, Karen
Yes.
and Claus?
Yes.
We have that, and I think then we can leave that, if that staff direction is okay with you, Jasmine. I think along with that, then our staff direction would be that you get a hold of the people from the hospital and ask if they could come and do, I think we would probably possibly give it another 1 or 2 meetings to see what's going to happen with COVID-19. Rather than them doing it might be better to do a non-virtual meeting, but I guess it will depend on how long we have virtual meetings. But what does council think of that? Any comments on that?
Sure.
So then, is that okay? Jasmine, you just want to talk to them and let them know that we would like them to come and do a delegation?
Well,
Yes, Karen?
I'd rather wait till I can actually than trying to do this, maybe the in-person. I mean, it was the late in the year anyway before they came before, so even it is till October, November of this year.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Jeff?
I agree with that because also it's completely out of our budget. So I mean, we have to plan for that. So I mean, like it's I don't even think it's something we're even going to say yes to this year because it's just not in our budget. And if we're afraid about spending money in other places, there's no way we can spend it here.
Yeah. Okay, so then do we just can we just simply get a hold of them and let them know that we would like them to come and do a delegation after we open up our meetings to non-virtual? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so is that fine with you, Jasmine? You've got enough direction there?
Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to say yes during the council providing direction part.
Okay,
Taking the
all
direct-
right, no problems. Then I have a motion here. I'll read it. That the committee of the whole received the following report, the 2020 donations report, and that council provide directions on the next steps for donations. I feel that we've done that. Do we have a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Karen and seconded by Claus.
Question though, so are we giving to laws right now or no?
Oh yeah, do we want to invite Laws back for a delegation?
Yes, Ian?
I think this is pretty simple. First of all, the only thing that goes there is cats.
Yes.
Big Sky Big Ranch doesn't come and ask us for donations to neuter dogs that go there from our township. So are we in the business of neutering cats? I don't think that we are. It's not even where our animals go.
We could get consensus right now, I guess, and then put that to rest.
Yep.
Ian, I saw your hand up. Sorry, Claus, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, no, I was just going to suggest we get consensus on that particular subject because they asked us for money before and we turned it down. So.
Okay, well, we've got Ian's opinion. Claus, I'll go to you, ask you.
No.
Okay, Jeff
I don't think so. Yeah, no.
and Karen.
No,
Okay, so then you have consensus. So then it's just the three for now: Real, Smith Falls Library, and Big Brothers Big Sisters. So you've got direction on all of that, and then I'm going to ask for a vote on this. It was moved by Karen and seconded by Claus. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thank you, everybody, for that. And we're moving on then to the reports of the committees, and there are none. No petitions, no motions, and notice of motions, and there's no unfinished business. And before we do adjourn, I'm going to go to the public and or to Christy, I should say, and ask Christy if there were any questions.
Two questions here.
Ooh.
The first one.
Hang on, Christy.
So Christy, your voice is all muffled.
Okay, I'm gonna turn you back on, okay? Try again.
Can you hear me?
No, it's doing something really weird.
I definitely did a document.
Anything.
Can you just send me both of them in an email, like right now?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay. Sounds like
And then Jasmine, if you could please just read the question out.
Yes, I will. Okay, I have one. One of them is not necessarily very related to the agenda, but it is Rosedale Hall still costing us $40,000 a year when we can't use it? So I guess
So I don't think that we would have, my personal opinion right there off the bat is we don't have the accurate information to give anybody that answer at the moment, because we don't know what's cost. We don't have all of the cost at the moment because it's not being used, and we don't know. And obviously hasn't made anything this year, so we don't really have the accurate information, do we, for that?
not really. I mean, you could assume we've had reduced expenses because it hasn't had to be like that. Certainly, the intent with the recreation committee was to have more use this year, despite some of the septic problems. There's definitely still things that we can do. Unfortunately, that's due to the COVID-19 has not been possible. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe if that person has more specific question, that person could send it in to our staff maybe and get a further answer.
Sure. And then I have a second.
That question could go to our treasurer easily by an email.
Sure. So the second question is, what became of the information letter that was sent out? And I have to apologize.
What became of what?
The information letter that was intended to be set out. And I have to apologize. I did intend to bring this up actually as business arising from the minutes of the council. So the quotes for sending it out was, I think, somewhere in the realm of $1,400. I do have a draft of it completed. I reached out to Metroland to see if we could do a flyer distribution. They did get in contact with me, but they haven't provided me concrete pricing yet. I guess because this was kind of a council initiated thing, do you want to continue with it, or would you like to maybe put that on hold for a little while? based on the pricing? Or do you want to like absolutely confirm that flyer pricing? And like I said, I do apologize. It was my intent to have that, to actually talk about that at the business arising. But
we have to remember that when we first started talking about this, we were sort of, the figure of $400 was thrown out. So $1,400 is an awful lot of money compared to 400. But Claus, I saw your hand up.
The $1,400 quote, Jasmine, came from the post office to mail it out.
yeah, to do like an
So-
ad mail.
Now, the post office, would they target to mail that into Montague residents only?
Yeah, you can pick certain areas. Yes.
Okay, I've done this before, where I've done flyer mailing, and the post office will send out to RR1, RR6, RR5. And RR1, which is where I am, is also the Golf Club Road.
Yeah, it like you pick general areas that are like 99% of the township.
But a lot of this is going to be wasted because we're going to be paying for flyers that are going to other municipalities. And the other problem that we have to think about also is that when we first started talking about doing this a month ago, we were right in the thick of COVID-19, and here we are now starting to talk about opening things back up again. So I'm afraid that a lot of the things that would be on this would become pretty irrelevant fairly quickly.
I agree.
Yeah.
You know, and it still is, there's still many ways that we are communicating to our public. And yes, a few people that don't have the internet is a concern, and it is an issue. But the fact of the matter is, the more people that I've talked to, the more important people realize the importance of reaching out to all of your neighbors who may not have it. And most neighbors know who does not have internet. And the people that I've talked to, I have to admire our residents in Montague, because a lot of our residents are speaking out, are reaching out to their neighbors, and they are filling in the information that to the few people that would get it on this pretty expensive flyer. And as I said, a lot of it's going to be irrelevant. We're already talking about opening up the township again. So I guess back to your question, Jasmine, like, is it something that we still want to explore or whatever? Like, to me, it still is important, but it would be nice. Like, I wouldn't want to see us completely drop this idea. I think it's a great idea, but we are going to be sending out tax bills again in the future, obviously. And is that a time that we could send this one pager or two pager or whatever, and or make our newsletter even bigger with much more detail? So, like, to me, it might be not quite the right timing now, because the whole month has gone by since we started talking about it. But it's not, but I wouldn't want to see us just completely forget about the idea, because there's always ways that we can communicate more to everybody. But Ian, I think I saw your hand flash there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Maybe it's better suited once we have a reopen plan put in place that we could, and it might be a lot cheaper just to, put it on a page in the newspaper instead of actually mailing it to everybody.
Yeah. And the other thing is, every time you see the local paper, sad to say that it's getting smaller and smaller, but they've always got something in there. Give us your information. Give us your information. So I see nothing wrong with us feeding information to them as a free story, as a free press release. And they're asking, they're begging for local information. So why can't we just give them do a press release, give it to them, let them send it out, and we have to request that they give it to everybody, not just parts of Montague Township.
So a press release is a free option that we can get some information in the paper. There is no guarantee that they're going to print it. I just want to be clear. But they very often print things that we put up, news releases that we would send directly. So we could basically take the information we've got and put it together in a news release and, get them to publish that.
Well, I think my opinion is that we should do that, and we should almost demand that they put it in, because they are always asking and letting us know. I know we can't demand, but I feel like it, because they're always begging us to give us the information. And every time all you have to do is open up the local newspaper and you'll see lots of information from Smith Falls. You don't see it from the surrounding areas. So is that okay with council, that we look at, we just sort of forget about the one pager for now, and we continue to try to communicate as many ways as possible? Is that okay with everybody? I think, well, I'm not seeing any yeses or nos, but pardon?
I think that, you know, I think everybody's right. There's a lot of information that's on the flyer that's maybe not relevant now, and I think it's probably better to wait. If we're going to spend any money or anything of that nature, that we maybe publish a news release or go forward or something of that nature.
Okay, and I think that if staff wishes, I mean, we can still put in press releases if it's going to be free and not cost anything. Okay. Okay, so we've dealt with the questions and we've dealt with everything else. And the only thing else left is to have a motion to adjourn. I need a mover and a seconder, moved by Karen and seconded by Jeff. That the committee of the whole meeting do now adjourn at
9 o'clock exactly.
9:00 p.m. All in favor? And that is carried. And again, I just want to, I guess I'll just reiterate, this is just a general thank you to everybody, but again, a general thank you to all of the residents of Montague, because you have all helped to kind of bend this curve a little bit, and to protect each other and your neighbors and your friends, and everybody is doing their part. And I have to admire all of Montague for that. I guess also, again, to continue thanking all of our essential workers, because there's lots and lots of people, and actually there's going to be more people become more essential in the next week or two. So we thank them, and I personally have to thank our staff and all of the council for, I feel, another very, very good meeting, and lots of input and lots of suggestions, I just want to thank everybody for it. So if there's no other comments, then I'll stop my rant. So good night, everybody.
Great, thanks, guys.
Good night.
Right.
I'm gonna shut the live stream off now.